Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 295. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And Connor is also here.
Just about.
Yes. And I will just start this show by saying that I have dun 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 in my head, and it'll probably be in my head now for weeks. Because
every time it gets stuck in my head, then it becomes the Imperial March, so it helps.
I don't have that problem, and I'm happy I don't have that problem. This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together, we've talked about the books we read this week, and coming up on this week's show, we have Detective Comics 1055, it's not the Batman, sorry, it's the movie's fault. Batman 121, Dark Knights of Steel issue 5, Justice League Incarnate issue 5, Batman Killing Time issue 1, Monkey Prince issue 2, Arkham City Order of the World issue 6, Nice House in the Lake issue 7, and I have a couple of Patreon books that I'm catching up from last month, so I'll be talking about American Vampire 23 and Animal Man 17, so look forward to all that jazz. So yeah,
I'm really glad I didn't do a Patreon book now.
Yeah, I told you it was a decent list of books.
Yeah, but I didn't realize there was that many.
Well, there you go. We got 4 Batman books to settle in. So
a lot of Batman.
It's Backcountry this week apparently. Yeah. Since there's a new movie out, so I guess
now I need to go listen to Avenged Sevenfold.
What? I don't get it. What?
Backcountry.
What? Is that a song?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's also from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
I've never seen that.
Song.
So,
gotcha.
I've never seen that movie. I've never listened to the Avenged Sevenfold song.
What?
That's sort of surprising. They're kind of your sort of thing.
I think that. I think the small snippets I've heard, they sound like, yes, they're kind of in the wheelhouse of the sort of music that I like, but they're kind of with I don't know, what's that other band I don't like? Bullet for My Valentine. Like, I feel like I set them.
I mean, maybe the
corner.
early stuff. But anything after like their second or third album is.
City of Evil might be much more your jam.
I've not,
which is where Backcountry comes from.
Nightmare, I think it dig.
Yeah.
I've probably not heard anything. The snippets I've heard of them was on music channels when I watched music channels, which has been at least 15 years at this point.
There's no such thing as music channels anymore.
Yeah.
They're all reality TV channels now.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't. I can't tell you the last time MTV played a music video.
Well, yeah, but
it's just ridiculous.
I mean, MTV's not been a music channel in a long time, but there used to be like 20 music channels that were all like phone in to pick the next song.
What?
Channels. Yeah.
Oh yeah, not here.
No, that's really. Are they still a thing? I assume they're still a thing.
I don't think so.
No, they just don't exist.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but do you know what I think might have killed them? And this is going to sound really weird, but I genuinely think might have killed them. Adding radio stations to TV networks. In terms of like if in the UK your Freeview is the standard things now.
And YouTube. YouTube probably completely murdered them as well.
Right, but even before that was added to TV, even like for the older audience who just like, oh no, I'm using the TV. All the core digital radio stations are just channels in the high end of the TV numbers now. So you don't need you don't need music TV stations because it's just here's just your radio.
To be fair, it was like that back then too. I remember my cable back then having them all as well.
Yeah, but they're not. It wasn't just like it's not just cable now. It's everyone has them.
I suppose. Oh yeah, they have Freeview and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. That's a weird tangent to start on.
It was, but
yeah. So two of us have seen the Batman, right? The Batman came out officially yesterday.
I'll say in about 6 months.
6?
Probably.
Why 6?
Why not?
Probably going to be available in like 3. I would get it.
It'll be available in like 6 weeks probably, but I'm probably going to see it for like 6 months. I'll be like, oh cool, that's there, and then I won't get around to it for ages. This is what I do with pretty much every superhero movie now.
This was the most packed the theater I've been to has been since Spider-Man. So,
how many things have you seen since Spider-Man?
A lot.
Maglo's probably too often.
Yeah. But usually it's empty. Like when we saw Jackass, it wasn't a lot of people.
That fills me with some hope for the world, honestly, that it was empty when you went to see Jackass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, Jackass isn't really a movie you need to see on the big screen, unless you're me.
It's really
But
not.
I've seen all the other ones.
It's not a movie you need to see, period, for anyone.
I don't know.
Mark me down.
Watching stupid people get hurt is still fun. I don't care. Especially when it's self-inflicted. But yeah, no. I can't off the top of my head. I'm very tired. Turns out when you drink a cold brew before the Batman, it messes with your sleep patterns. So yeah, they made a terrible windstorm here. Felt like my house was being picked up and taken to Oz at 5 a.m. So I didn't get much sleep.
Yeah, so I do plan on recording some sort of like in-depth review on the Batman on my own at some point early next week, but the short version, obviously with no spoilers for anyone, because I assume a lot of you have not seen it yet, is that it's very bloody good, and probably the most positive I felt coming out of a superhero movie in years. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I wouldn't say I mean, I tend to like the Marvel films more than Pete when it comes to superhero stuff. So
I like Birds of Prey a lot, so I'm good.
Yeah, but like this, without getting into spoilers, this is definitely Matt Reeves. You can tell definitely did his homework. This feels like no, I know, but this like Birds of Prey was definitely its own thing. Like this just felt like if they said this was based off of a certain comic, I would have believed it, because it feels like a specific Batman run, even though it's pulling from a couple.
It's pulling from a lot of things, but
it feels very coherent. It feels very Batman. It's probably the most comic. Like it feels like the most comic book of the Batman movies. Whereas like Nolan's were kind of like, yeah, like these are based on comics, but we're doing like grounded and gritty. Matt Reeves is like, no, these are based on comic books. And
well, I think it depends on how you look at it. I think you could argue this is more grounded than Nolan's films in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just felt like the way this is shot.
This is exactly why I muted the Batman on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I felt like the way this was shot, it definitely feels much more episodic than Nolan stuff. Where Nolan's seemed like big and grand, and each chapter of this felt to me like an issue in a comic.
I mean, they're going for different things, which is why the comparison is not invalid, but it's just I'm just
going off of the last time I enjoyed a movie with Batman in it.
I can't be
was Nolan.
I mean, honestly, like, you know, the first 10 minutes there's like narration that sounds like it's right outside of a Batman or out of a Batman comic, and it feels very comic booky in that sense. But there's definitely some ways it's less grounded, but there's other ways where it's more grounded. It's definitely smaller in scope. It's not going for the entire city as like being held hostage by this one madman the entire time kind of thing. It's not doing that.
If you read The Imposter, it's very much the same vibe.
Yeah, kind of similar tone in a lot of ways.
So, yeah. So if you like that and you're on the fence whatsoever, like, pretty sure if you're listening to us, you're probably have already seen it by the time you listen.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's funny because I was talking to Tim actually about this. Not so much about the movie itself, but about the fact that Batman's in this place that it's almost impossible for a Batman movie to not be a huge success now, right? Batman has sort of reached this.
People are just gonna see it.
This like level of stature amongst all the superheroes. He's the most popular, and it wasn't always like that though. This is the thing. When Batman Begins came out, that movie only did okay, and it took them a while to even greenlight The Dark Knight. And obviously that seems like nuts to think about now, but it was this time span before they did that. And so in a lot of ways that trilogy did kind of like turn Batman into the juggernaut that he is in terms of popularity again. You know, so it's just interesting now that, you know, I've said a few times on, I don't know if it was this show or on reviews or something else, but we kind of have to look at, you know, new sets of Batman movies and all superhero movies to an extent, but Batman is kind of already went through a couple of phases of this, which is when a new director gets a hold of him. It's like, you know, it's like a new creator getting a new run on the comic, and some of the, like, there's obviously themes and ideas that are in both Nolan's trilogy and this new film, but then there's some other things that this film focuses on instead that it wants to delve into. So I will say again, no spoilers. I will say there's one scene towards the end I did not like. You can hear me talk about that sometime next week. But
yeah, I am happy. I did threat that if two things happened, I would walk out, and neither of those two things happened. So I wasn't forced to walk out.
I mean, that's a positive review if I ever heard one. I was not forced to walk out.
As my brother, he's like, "You're not gonna leave." I was like, "Bro, if these two things happen, I'm out. I will go hang out in the arcade at the theater." All right. I'm glad they didn't call my bluff because they didn't have any money. There's
a moment in the middle of the movie where I was really worried about something they were about to do, and then it kind of played it exactly the way I would have wanted them to play it, and I was like, okay, Matt Reeves, I felt heard.
Yeah, we have trust.
I felt like he heard me in that moment.
Yeah,
worried.
Yeah, I mean,
about what he was about to do.
Yeah, he's pretty good at what he does. That Matt Reeves.
But yeah, I mean, this is easily the best DC movie since Nolan's films, and comparing it to Nolan's films is kind of a hard task. Like, where does it rank next to that? Some people feel very strongly one way or the other, I'm sure. I think they both have exceptional amount of merit.
I know I came out talking about, comparing them and stuff, but they can both coexist. Like you said, they're both like different runs, like from a different creator. So it's like Morrison's run is very different than, King's run. And if you like both of them, great. But if you like one more than the other, that's understandable. This doesn't. It's like my brother, as soon as he left, was like, "Oh, this is the best Batman movie ever." And I was like, "All right, I feel like you're just hyped up after seeing a movie.
Yeah,
like, that's okay, but think about it." So, no, but yes, it was.
But I think it's the best DC movie since then. I would probably rank it higher than most Marvel movies. Certainly the vast majority of them. And part of that's down to taste, but part of it also just feels like it really feels like a director's movie in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised actually how un-studio movie it felt, which is impressive given that it's a character like Batman who's going to have sequels. There's already 2 TV spin-offs announced for it. Like, it is part of a franchise, it is part of that machine, but it doesn't feel like that when you're watching it.
Not going into details, I want to watch both of them, but I'm much more excited for one more than the other after seeing the movie.
I've got a funny feeling you're excited for Cobblepot's show.
Oh, he was great.
Here's a question. At any point in that film, could you, I mean, you knew it was, but could you tell it was Colin Farrell under that makeup? I couldn't.
Not physically, but some of his voice patterns, you would hear certain Colin Farrell bits. But no, you lose it.
Yeah, I cannot tell at all.
Yeah, it was. He's so over the top. Like, it fits so well compared to the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
obviously it shouldn't work, but it does.
I got excited, and because I wasn't actually even planning seeing the movie as quickly as I did. The reviews were just so good that I got excited and I had to go. As of right now, I don't feel that I think I'm that compelled to see any of the other DC movies that are coming out this year in the theaters. Like, I can wait for all of them.
I'm gonna be there for Black Adam for sure. But
maybe if the trailers wow me or something, or it gets really good buzz. But I'm gonna get
sheer curiosity for Flash, just because he's not even the star of his own titled movie.
Morbid curiosity is maybe the way I'd phrase that.
Yeah. And then Aquaman is like, it's Aquaman.
The first movie was kind of lame, but
yeah, like overstuffed, but I do like Momoa's vibe. It's not typical Aquaman, but we'll see. I still have no idea what it's actually about. But no, out of those, Shazam, I'll definitely. But I'm a mark for The Rock. I mean, I went and saw Rampage, and I went and saw Skyscraper. So I've done far worse than Shazam.
You paid to go see Skyscraper.
I did.
I watched that for free, whatever service it was on, and I still feel ripped off.
Yes, I'm not proud of myself, but I went. Just like I went and saw The Meg. Not proud of myself. But sometimes you just have to go see the giant monster or the big stupid action flick in the theater on the biggest screen possible. I also paid to see Everest in IMAX, so don't trust my money handling skills.
Yes. Well, just to wrap this up, I highly recommend seeing the Batman. It's very good.
Yes.
Very, very good. So, yes. All right. Well, not to worry. There's always time for the opening top 10. Don't you think that?
Oh, that's the opening top 10 now.
Well, I can't call it the Comicsology top 10 anymore.
Nope.
They've taken that away from me. We're just gonna do what we did last week. Look at League of Comic Book Geeks pull list rankings order. Seems like the most like used in terms of data that we can access. So
yeah, I think until Amazon, they have said they're updating the publishers section in a statement that should fix it. I guess once that's up and running, it looks like it's, again, at a glance, it looks like it's probably in order of sales. Just right now, it's limited in its publishers, but it's probably the next best thing once that is actually using the right data.
We'll see if that happens. But at the time being, we're looking at the books that have been pulled on LeagueOfComicGeeks.com, ranked in number of pulls. All publishers, of course. Would anyone care to guess what number one is?
No.
I'm gonna guess it's Batman.
It is Batman 121. See? Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Number two, anyone care to guess? Number two?
Is it a DC book?
It is, yes.
Is it more Batman?
Kind of.
The only kind of Batman is Dark Knights of Steel.
Well, no, I mean,
yeah.
right now it's kind of Batman. There was no Batman in Detective Comics.
I mean, I'd still say that's Batman. Like, it's a Batman book. Overall.
It is a Batman book usually, but this arc's not a Batman book, so that's why I say kind of. I think that's fair. Number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man issue 91. Number 4 is Moon Knight issue 9. And number 5 is Justice League 73. So
wow,
someone's still reading that. Actually, they might not be reading
you're
that.
Still buying it.
Yeah, Matt did admit before the show that he's still buying this book and not reading it because he doesn't want a gap between whatever issue you start reading that and 75, which is Death of Justice League. So
yep.
And also the final. So he's buying like 6 issues to buy literally 1 issue of this series.
he is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, what if my shop gave me a discount?
Do they?
And sometimes. So
I mean, if
I do get 20% off. So
20%.
if I spent enough, 20% of what would be that $5? It's like I'm getting one for free.
So in terms of discounts, my shop started a thing recently where they take some of the most popular books, basically the ones they can make a loss on, and but they'll sell so many copies it's worth it, and lowered the price on them. So like Batman is now £2.99, which is cheap. Like on Amazon /Comicsology, that's $3.99 to buy. God damn it, those are expensive. But it's $4.99 book, right, in dollars, right? So
yeah.
I'm assuming that their idea is, well, get people in to come and buy the cheap copies of Batman, and they might buy some other stuff. But also, for me, I'm not mad at it. Sure, I'll have some cheaper books.
Yeah. Okay. Number 6 is X-Men issue 9. Number 7 is Dark Knights of Steel issue 5. Number 8 is Fantastic Four issue 41. Number 9 is Nice House in the Lake issue 7. So that's pretty high up there. And then number 10 is Star Wars The High Republic issue 15. So that is the top 10 based on the pull list on there. As for all the DC books, the teens are mostly actually Marvel stuff by and large. Batman Killing Time does squeak out of the top 20 by the looks of it. And then whatever DC books are left over are in the 20s. So, but, I mean, top 10 was pretty DC hit, but at least half of it was DC, so not a bad showing for their bigger books by any means. In fact, I think Dark Knights of Steel being in the top 10 kind of shows how much of a cred Taylor has now.
That is a Tom Taylor book, and they all tend to make the top 10.
Well, that's what I was just saying. It's a sign of his stature now as a writer. So, yeah.
Deceased 3 gonna sweep every week.
Deceased.
It's not Distusto, it's Distreed. The three's at the last E.
Because there's still the EA first, isn't there?
So how do you pronounce the title of the movie Seven? Seven then?
Seven then.
Seven then.
Oh dear. There you go. So that's the opening top 10. What a week. It's a hell of a week. Yeah. Do you know Lois and Clark? I think came back this. Not Lois and Clark. Sorry, Lois and Superman. Superman and Lois. That's what the show's called. I think that came back this week. And the reason why I brought it up is I thought I was like 5 episodes behind, but it turned out it took a break after the first one that I didn't watch. So I'm actually only like 2 behind, but I'm still not feeling that compelled to catch up.
Yeah,
you should catch up. Suffer.
Nah, I don't think I will.
I don't like hearing that.
I've got more interesting shows to watch right now. Severance and Apple's a really good little mystery sci-fi show that's intriguing.
I'm just watching shitloads of old Doctor Who, like a lot. I'm on the final season of the 3rd Doctor.
I hate so much about what you choose to be.
Oh, but it's so good. Even when it's not, it's so good. I just watched the first episode of the first story of this season. It's got the first Sarah Jane Smith with the first Sontarans. It's so good.
That was the most Michael and Toby I've ever seen you two. That's like when Michael's like, and Toby's divorced, so he's not even really part of his own family. That was the same tone Pete took with "I hate everything you choose to be." That's a T-shirt with Connor's face on it. I hate everything you choose to be.
Being into classic Doctor Who is like, I don't know, like one rung above like being an anime fan.
Hey, I'll watch some anime. I've been catching up on Attack on Titan.
Oh man,
I'm still like a season and a half, 2 seasons behind, but I'm getting there.
All we need is BBC to team up with Crunchyroll for the first ever Doctor Who anime, just to give Connor.
So the animated reconstructions of the lost episodes count? Because I've watched all those.
Oh,
was that a Japanese studio who made them?
No, it was I think it was actually Big Finish, which is usually they do the audio dramas, Doctor Who, and other things as well, but primarily they're known for Doctor Who.
I don't know who I saw on Twitter saying this, but they said that they wish that Superman and Lois was a half hour instead of a full hour.
I was talking to Superman. I saw him say that.
Okay. Which doesn't make me want to finish the first season because I haven't gone back.
First season was good.
Yeah. Honestly, I disagree with that sentiment because to me, fixing the problems in the writing is not just cutting out all the stuff that's not working and just leaving what's left. That's not how you fix it.
I mean, it would fix things though, right?
It would leave it feeling quite anemic.
But better.
That's not how you fix. That's not how you write better. You don't just. Look.
Yeah, so
it's called editing. If it's not working, cut it out. Leave the good stuff. Nice and lean.
Okay.
Thought about watching Fringe because I've never seen it.
Oh, it's good, man. You should watch Fringe.
Yeah, but then I see 20-episode seasons and it's hard.
Yeah, I watched the first season and it was fine. And I know Peter's about to jump in. It's like, oh, but the second season is where it actually starts, and I know that, but it was fine. Don't
listen to Connor. Like,
no, I'm sure it's good. I heard nothing but good things from all my friends. It's a commitment, right? Like that's five seasons. They're all about 20 episodes.
I mean, five shorter, but yeah, the first 4 are all 22.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm sat here with another 380 odd episodes of Doctor Who to go.
Yeah, so you shut your mouth. You got nothing to say.
They're mostly 20-minute episodes. 25.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a commitment until you're into it, and then all of a sudden you're happy. You've got something you're excited to watch the next episode of, and then when it's over, you feel like your life's empty because you've finished the thing you cared about.
That's what I need. It's like watching movies this week. I did get excited to watch West Side Story, but then like I would get bored, and then the camera work would bring me back in. You know,
I do like having movies. I've heard good things.
it's so I'm not a big musical guy. Like, despite that I do like La La Land and certain other ones, this type of music just not for me. However, the camera work, it's like Spielberg is reminding people that he doesn't make just, from Lincoln on to this, none of his best work. I think it's all perfectly, passable. West Side Story, him and Kaminsky are like.
He's been wanting to make this for years, though, hasn't he? So
yeah,
it's not surprising.
He has a point of view when it comes to the story, and just the camera work and the choreography and everything just works. I just wish I cared about the story more. So
I mean, it's basically just Romeo and Juliet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right, and like it gets very melodramatic, which you can't help because it's very close to the source material, from what I understand. But like, Ashley loved it.
I'm expecting to love it. It's been a long time since I've watched the original one, but I do like it a lot from memory at least.
But like, knowing that I have stuff to watch is very exciting, because for a long time it's been, like, oh, what am I going to watch? I'll find something, and I keep putting out Power of the Dog.
I just Doctor Who.
Yeah, right. But I keep pushing off. Yeah, I keep pushing off Power of the Dog. Like, I know I should watch it. It's up for all of those, but I just hear it's a very quiet, long movie. Like,
Every movie this last year has been quiet and long. But damn, Batman's like 3 hours.
But it's not quiet.
No, that's fair. But like, and I'm not even saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I've seen like Dune's like 2 hours 45. The last Bond film was like that as well, and I like both of those movies a lot. So I'm not saying that it's inherently a bad thing, but it feels like every big movie lately is.
It is becoming a trend. I mean, the thing with Batman is that it does kind of neatly feel like it is like this. Like, you can almost like break it down to like a 6-issue miniseries, and this is like the 6 chunks of it. So that's why it's so long, because it plays it that way. Like,
you can feel the length of it, but you're not bothered by it because you're enjoying what you're seeing.
So, it wasn't a critique of the Batman, but like, specifically.
2 hours 36 of West Side Story, even at home, where I put my phone across the room just so I could pay attention. Like, I felt every single one of those minutes.
There's a lot of long films right now.
That's just my taste, though.
We are only a few years away from the return of everything being 90 minutes. It's going to swing back around.
I hope so, as I do like a nice short little jaunt. Encanto was a nice, 104 minutes, get in, get out. So,
I mean, I don't want things that should be longer to be shortened, but at the same time, there are too many things that are too long. So basically, there's
I'm not
balance.
saying that everything should be long or should be short. I'm just saying these things come in cycles, right? But
what I'm saying is that'll still be bad, though. Everything swinging back to 8 minutes is bad for certain movies.
It is, but also it is as bad on a creative level, but on a personal level, I'd rather watch 90 minutes of a bad movie than 3 hours of a mediocre movie.
That's true. No, but I remember Pete talking about this back when we did the film podcast, when like all the big mergers are happening, and it was just like less space for more filmmakers to make things, and it's definitely feeling like that now, And it's like, I'm glad that Villeneuve gets to make Dune, even though I'm not interested in it. And if he wants to make it 3 hours, cool. But what else is there to counter program that? There's not a lot.
Well, I will say this: I'm feeling more optimistic this week about movies, like bigger movies, than I have. Or I shouldn't say bigger. That's not necessarily the right word. But
studio tentpole movies.
Well, not even tentpole movies, because like there was 2 pieces of news, or well, was one piece of news this week, but I'm going to relate it to something else, and then tie that with seeing the Batman. Is that I've not been excited for big studio movies really for a while. There's the odd one that's been alright, but I wasn't even in love with Dune, right? I wasn't in love with the other things that came out last year. It's been a few years since I've been really excited for a big one, and I really like the Batman. And ultimately, it boils down to I like that director. He made a good movie. I like him. That's how it works. And I'm excited for the next Predator movie because it's this new take from the director of 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's, Dan Trachtenberg. It's called Prey, and it's set in the past, and the poster looks really cool, and it looks like a sort of interesting take on the idea. And one of the things that I've always said is that, like, stop ruining Alien. And just yesterday, this weird news broke that what's his face from Fede Alvarez from the Evil Dead 2013 movie is doing an Alien movie, and this is the best part, that is not connected to the previous films, which is the best news about the whole thing.
Okay, but is it Alvarez? Is he just producing or is he directing?
Well, he's directing.
Okay.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be telling you about this if he wasn't directing.
Well, I misunderstood what you're saying then, because he also produced Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and
which was a great slasher movie. So shut up.
It was fine. Yeah.
It's like the third or fourth best movie in that franchise, and it's not a good movie.
Yeah, but that's not saying a lot.
No, I know it's not saying a lot, but as a slasher sequel, the kills were great, the gore was great, everything else kind of sucked, but that's okay. It was 85 minutes.
Yeah.
I love the carnage.
Yeah.
It's all you need.
The bus scene was pretty cool, but
it's all you need. Well, I don't know if you wanted more than that out of that movie, then it's your expectations that are at fault.
No, I just didn't. Yeah. Maybe it's still like Texas Chainsaw. I mean, I don't know.
It's not as good as Texas Chainsaw 2013, which is funnier and more silly. But
yeah, and that's maybe I wanted to be more silly and less just straight brutal.
It's not. Really, yeah, but this is the thing. Go back and watch the 2003 remake. That movie is like mind-numbingly like taking itself seriously. The new one, this new one does not take itself that seriously.
No. This is the second best Texas Chainsaw movie I've seen. We'll put third. Well, did I like it more than the original? I don't know. I'm not big on the original, but yeah, I know. I did watch Texas Chainsaw at the beginning. A couple weeks ago.
Anyway, the point I was getting to is that what these all have in common, because I was sick of seeing Predator ruined. I was sick of seeing Alien ruined, and while I'd still rather have new things. The reason why I'm mostly feeling good about all this news and things coming out is because it's all directors that I think make good movies. I'm a director-focused person first, rather than a property person first at this point, which is generally speaking a healthier and more consistent thing to care about. Same with comic books. You like the writers you like the artists you like.
Right. Was Trachtenberg's last movie 10 Cloverfield Lane?
I think so. Yeah, you see that made
What's he been working on since?
I think he does the odd TV episode, I think.
Okay. That makes sense.
But
yeah, he only has 2 movies.
Yeah.
That's well, he did The Boys in an episode. He did the Black Mirror episode. I like Play a Test.
Yeah, so he does some TV episodes, but
yeah, no, our friend Dan keeps sharing that poster for Prey, and it's like, yeah, okay, this is coming. This is good. So
it just looks like a fun idea, or a fun take on the property. Something different. It doesn't feel like if there's one thing that I would need Hollywood to get over, it's the nostalgia right now, because they're obsessed with freaking nostalgia. Remember how great the first movie was? That's all this movie's about, is how great the first one was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even necessarily that they're terrible, but I'm looking at you, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm looking at you.
But you know what? I enjoyed Ghostbusters Afterlife for what it was. It wasn't like the best, but I've certainly seen way worse of that type of stuff. Like, the only thing that made me cringe in that one was the mini puffs, because they just didn't need to be there.
I'm not saying it's the worst thing ever. Don't take it that way. I'm just saying that it doesn't need to exist. Like, it exists. It doesn't have a purpose on its own. It only exists to say, remember how good the first one was. It doesn't have anything on its own to say. And there's too many movies like that these days. So the more we can move away from that, the better. And to bring it back round to the Batman, that movie has something to say. There's a character arc. There's a statement. You feel there's a message by the end that it's trying to get across. And I won't say what it is, because that'd be getting into serious spoiler territory, but it's a very effective message, and it's one that resonated with me, and I felt something at the end. So, that means more to me than a lot of quips or like a bunch of Easter eggs.
I will say this, and not that they're that similar, because they're not at all. They're doing different things, but like the amount of praise that I saw for the Batman versus Spider-Man No Way Home, I looked at a lot of the praise for No Way Home, and I was going like, no, you guys just liked seeing other Spider-Man, like, and other characters from stuff that you recognized. And with Batman, I'm just like, oh no, this was actually all the praises matching with like a well-told story. It developed characters, and it wasn't just the, hey, look at this thing that you remember Doc Ock. And I still like No Way Home. It's still a fun, there's really good moments there, but Batman doesn't feel like it's going the, hey, remember Batman?
No, it's saying, hey, look, this is our Batman, and we're going to justify why you should care about this Batman, and that's what it does.
No, hey, Warners, if you're listening, how about we do that with Superman? And you just go, hey, and it pisses me off every time, and this is my own issue, the fact that we get a good Batman movie, and they still can't seem to figure out Superman. I don't get it. I know there's capable creators out there.
I mean, to be fair, they're also not doing a good job of every other property they try to make into a movie, so it's not like Superman's on his own in that respect.
No, and I get that. That's fair too, but I just feel like they don't want to try.
Because I would understand, like, see if we got the perfect Flash movie, the perfect Green Lantern movie, the perfect Wonder Woman, and then it was just Superman that they kept screwing up or couldn't get right.
I know, but hey, at least they've got Harley right at this point. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I like the Suicide Squad, so I mean, I guess I'm.
Yeah, it was fine. Like I loved a lot of what it did, but it doesn't stick with me. Not like, and we all know that I mostly play a Batman grump on Twitter and stuff. But I'm still thinking about the Batman.
Oh, the Batman's it. The Batman actually has left me thinking about what it said, and no other superhero movie has done that, probably since Christopher Nolan.
And with Suicide Squad, like, it's fun, and I get what James Gunn was doing, and you could tell it's much more his speed with creatures and, visceral type violence. But I haven't thought about it a lot since, even with watching Peacemaker. So, just two different things. But I just wish, find a Matt Reeves for Superman, please. Someone that understands, because I know Matt Reeves understands Batman. Find someone that understands Superman.
I mean, I've been screaming Brad Bird for years, and they just don't listen to me. They just don't listen to me.
I get it. I mean, Iron Giant is probably the best Superman movie we've had the last 30 years.
Yes. Oh, dear. It's hey, anyway, we should probably get into talking about this week's comic book, shouldn't we? So we bounced around a bit there, but we will start off with Detective Comics 1055, Mariko Tamaki writing, with Amancay Nahuelpan. I'm probably butchering that name, apologies.
I think you nailed it.
But that's them on the art. So yeah, obviously we had the incident finally arrived end of last issue, and this one kind of kicks off with like the media reporting on, something's went down at Arkham Tower. It was supposed to be this new bastion of moving forward in the city. It turns out the word Arkham is still cursed, and we're all still doomed, like always. So
same old Gotham.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And just like with other Gotham, corruption seemed to, lead this astray, because it could have been fine. But Ware decided he was going to take the money and then a swan dive.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, Ware was sort of planning on doing something malicious the entire time, so it was kind of fundamental from the get-go.
Yeah. We can't have nice things in Gotham. This is the first issue where it made me feel like Connor, where how he's described a lot of the last issues.
Mm-hmm.
I felt this one, I could feel it kind of was like a lull, even though it's the beginning of the third act. Up until the end, when it ramped back up.
There's a lot of pages and not a lot of plot.
Yeah, but I do like a lot of the character stuff here, like a lot of the stuff with Elena versus the villains. and that type of stuff. But yeah, there's I could feel the lull in this part, but I've trusted them up to this point, so I'm sure it'll stick the landing. So I'm not worried at all. But yeah.
Just a question, because I may be just misremembering. They mentioned Steph's undercover in there.
Yeah.
Who is she under there? Have we seen her much?
Yeah, we saw her go in last issue.
We saw her go in, and she's in the crowd with the media.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I was thinking for some reason I was like, was she there the whole time, like undercover in there the whole time?
No,
she was going for the media event for the grand opening.
We knew she was in there by the time the event happened because she was mentioned in issue 1 as being in there, but then obviously
only Dick's undercover as an orderly and Helena's undercover as a patient.
Yeah. So obviously here we're finally back to, well, if it is indeed Harley, the jury's still out.
Yeah, right. But I think last issue they went closer towards hinting it, right?
Yeah. So we're actually finally at kind of like picking up the threads of what issue 1 teased, which I think made it feel like a nice, well-rounded kind of thing. You got Nightwing sort of running around with Psycho Pirate, although Psycho Pirate does duck out at some point.
He carries him at one point, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. And we sort of see that Anna Volshin tried to get to Nakano's wife, but she did get away. Which Huntress intervened, and that's what led to her bleeding out in the elevator shaft. But she gets back up. Mr. Freeze is on a rampage. I kind of loved the coloring in all of his pages because he's in this sort of red lit hallway, presumably from because there's like danger, red alert lights on everywhere. But all of his ice, of course, is this nice cool blue. Contrasting with it.
Disappointed to be wrong. No, he's still just trying to freeze everybody. Yeah,
he just needed his
freeze.
He just needed his freeze gun back. That's all.
Yeah.
Which they were just keeping lying around.
Yeah, that seems reckless.
Well, we know Dr. Ware's a bit of a fraud, so I'm not surprised that he's.
I'm actually surprised he didn't try to sell that stuff off to their names.
Put it on eBay. Authentic Mr. Freeze gun. That's fair. Yeah, Psycho Pirate runs off though whilst Nightwing's encountering Freeze because Nightwing tries to help. And Nightwing ends up sliding into a big hole that's been created because he slides it off down the ice and then into the hole.
Which seems to be a stupidly deep chasm.
Yes.
At least judging by the way they've done the lettering with the echo of her shouting Nightwing down it.
Yeah. The big thing though is that someone grabs Nightwing once he's landed. And we have another big villain sort of introduced into the story. Someone who I presume was just in here the whole time. We haven't been focusing on them or seeing them. But we were introduced to Scarecrow, so it's kind of like falling on a little bit from the Fear State stuff that he's in here and has something to do, not necessarily with what's been going on, but he's now going to do something that he's open.
Seems like he's going to take advantage of his circumstances.
Yeah. Because it says next time at the end, State of Fear, so it's obviously harkening back to that, and he's got Nightwing all tied up. And he still got the same outfit design, so he's still got that look. It doesn't look quite the same because it's a different artist, of course, but it is the same general design, though, to what he was wearing.
The creepy gas mask.
Creepy gas mask with a straw hat.
The broad hat.
Yeah. So, and some of the villains are debating what they should do. Psycho Pirate's the one that ends up with Nakano's wife, and basically says he was supposed to like try and go to her, because if she's kept safe,
they'll get their money.
Yeah, pretty much. That was kind of the idea. But Psycho Pirate says that he's failed and now he can't like control anyone anymore, at least for a while. I guess he's just too emotionally distraught. Like he's
tapped. Yeah, he's tapped out.
So. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I can kind of see the complaint that there's not really a whole lot of advancement in this issue. I think what it did, though, is that, we're 8 weeks removed from that first issue of this, and I think the reason why it takes its time just kind of establishing where all the characters are is just to link you back up to where they all were teased in that first issue. So,
I mean, this is a 12-issue thing. There was bound to be lulls, and for me, I'm happy it took 8 issues to get there. Like, I'm not that upset by it. I still enjoyed. It just felt like it's spinning its wheels a little.
I definitely feel like it's a 12-issue story that could have probably been 8 and been a lot tighter.
Maybe. I think with this, it's they know it's been 8 weeks since you read that first issue, and I think when we read the first issue, I thought we'd be jumping back and forth a lot more, where it was actually a lot more just sequential once it jumped back, by and large, once we went from issue 2 onwards. I mean, it jumped around a little bit here or there, but it wasn't like jumping to like post issue 1 to back to the backstory. No. It was all backstory for the most part, building up to the event.
That first issue is definitely a hook.
Yeah. And
it's the cold open essentially for that issue,
and to be fair, it did work really well in the sense that I do think that there's been this sort of ticking clock feeling to a lot of this book up until this point, and I think that was because it literally just happened on the season premiere of Picard, where they did here's some action stuff at the start, 48 hours earlier, and then you spend the episode building up to it, and TV overuses it so much.
Sick of seeing that.
But I think this arc though has been a very good example of how it's actually added to the tension, because you're kind of waiting for the breaking point happening, so it's bubbling the entire time. But TV does overuse it, and it tends to just be all of the actions at the end of the episode, so we want to just take a little bit of it and put it at the start, just so that everyone knows there's action coming.
Yeah, comics tends not to do it too much beyond it being just in the same issue as when they're doing it, because as a rule, they're monthly, and it takes you a long time to get up to that point again, and people will definitely forget. Whereas this, when you're doing it weekly, you've got a lot more leeway with that.
Yeah. But creatively, I think there was a valid reason for it here, as opposed to just,
I think I think for my taste, I think it went on a little bit too long before we got to this point overall.
I think that just goes back to the complaint of it being maybe a little bit too long overall.
I do like though that like we've bounced back between the Bats, the Bat Squad led by Babs.
Yeah.
Right, and you have the Party Crashers, and where there's all these different threads that we can pop in and out of. So,
Yeah. No, I get it, and I'm mostly still enjoying it. I think it was more. Yeah. They described it as each month is like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I feel we probably should have got towards this point, during Act 2.
Halfway through Act 2.
Yeah, rather than we're in the final. I mean, that's 3 issues left after this.
Traditional story structure we're all kind of used to.
Yeah. I don't actually have as much of a problem with the pacing, I guess, but I will say Scarecrow's inclusion does feel a little bit out of nowhere to me.
Yeah.
That's probably my one critique and it may be really cool whatever they do with them now, but like it did kind of feel like, we're doing Scarecrow stuff. All right, I guess.
I think it's a combination of one, we just had a huge Scarecrow thing for like a year.
Yeah.
With the Fear State stuff, and two, you're introducing 3 issues before the end now. We've got 3 issues to play with this stuff. And whereas if we had, let's say if this was like, the start of Act 2 and we had, another 7 issues to go, we had like 2/3 of the story still to tell, I think I'd be more open to it.
If I was to speculate the point of Scarecrow being introduced, is I wonder if he's going to like use a bunch of fear toxin and then like Psycho Pirate, almost doing something for the good guys, is going to have to try and like counteract it with his ability. To calm everyone down. I could see them maybe, and that's why he's been introduced, perhaps.
I will say that I do like that this is going off of where we left Scarecrow, how he was kind of hiding in plain sight. How in the lead up to Fear State was he was leaving like the Scarecrows around and genning up this fear base, and so here, if he was in the Arkham Tower. Right, like if he was just laying in wait, but because didn't Batman drop him off? Thought he dropped him off at Blackgate, not Arkham, because of there was no Arkham left.
Yeah, that probably sounds right, but I assume they just transferred him to this tower with all the other.
It's just weird that they never mentioned that they had him though, right?
Yeah.
When we did that tour of here's all the villains, and it's like here's Freeze, he's our one big name that we've kind of got left.
Which makes me wonder if he was hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What if Scarecrow wasn't a patient? What if he like got out of Blackgate at some point and just snuck in here? Doctors. Yeah.
But yeah.
It was possible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if next issue is that let's go back and see how Scarecrow got here.
If we do that, I'm going to complain again because no.
Why?
Well, sure, that makes sense. But like, oh my god, we've just spent 8 issues going back to for what we've just done on this story. we're finally moving forward, getting towards the end. Oh, we're going back.
Well,
again.
I'm not assuming it's going to be the whole issue. I'm assuming there'll be some flashbacks as the main story is still progressing.
Possibly.
I think that's
if it is like,
okay.
if we're doing a full flashback issue again, I am not going to be happy with that.
You're never happy though, right? What did people think of the art? Because this is the first issue of the third artist.
It's fine. It matches the last two. You know.
Yeah, it's not a big dramatic shift where it feels.
No,
like
it complements. I shouldn't say matches. It complements. You know, they all feel kind of the same vibe. Helps that they feel they have the same colorist and inkers.
Probably, I assume. I haven't checked, but
to keep that continuity.
I don't know about inkers, but probably color. Jodie Belair on colors, so yeah, she'll have been on it the whole time, sure.
Yeah. The only real critique I would have is that occasionally when he does like a full body shot, sometimes they look a little bit wide. Like I noticed it with Freeze's full page spread. It's just a little bit wide, generally speaking. I think Scarecrow as well at the end, like his full page when he's holding Nightwing.
Yeah.
It just looks just a little bit stocky because he looks a little bit wider, perhaps in the hips and stuff.
While I don't disagree with it in general, I think for those two, kind of, I like the idea of Freeze being a bit, his suit is a bit bulky.
Sure.
And Scarecrow, he's got the kind of loose robes on, so again, that kind of makes sense that he feels bigger than he is. But I don't disagree that that it does happen a couple of times in this issue. I tend to actually quite like those choices.
I would agree. I would agree with Freeze more than Scarecrow. I think Scarecrow, I think of as very scrawny.
Normally, yes, but like I say, he's wearing very flowing, loose-fitting kind of robes here that even that you can see the trousers are really baggy in the silhouette. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
to me. But he's trying. It's Scarecrow trying to make himself more imposing.
Yeah, but you also look at his Nightwing that when he's tied to the chair, and he's a little bit bulky too.
Sure.
So I think that's just the style.
Which is why I'm saying it is definitely likely not just an artistic choice, but I actually like the end result on the Scarecrow and Freeze, even though it's probably a quote-unquote mistake.
Yeah, okay. Back up. We shift forward in time to No Man's Land, timeline-wise.
The kid cannot catch a break in his life.
He's just learning to walk.
Yeah, he's in rehab, and there's an earthquake.
Which is definitely making us question who the hell this is again, because this doesn't seem like Nero anymore, right? Because he seems to be just trotting around just fine.
Yeah, and Nero's is so like, because at this point this kid's so much more layered and sympathetic, and Nero's just like a psychopath at this point.
Yeah.
From what we've seen of him. But yeah, so it's like No Man's Land time period. He's with this girl that he's befriended from rehab, and they ended up joining like some sort of gang. There's this like guy that they're working for, Poet. That's right, yeah, poet, and basically he sends them out to go and like steal food from people, and gets really mad, and he's really abusive if they don't come back with anything. And it turns out Killer Croc stole this like campsite's food, so he sends our main kid and a little group out after him to get the food. And the main kid basically just bargains with Croc. There's some nice art here, of course, from Francavilla when Croc like pops out and like grabs her by the neck. And
You mean
Fornes. Oh, Blanco, I mean.
Blanco, what did I say?
There you go.
You said Francavilla.
I said Francavilla.
Yeah.
I mean, not a million miles away stylistically. So
yeah, I'm getting my F's mixed up. Let's be honest.
Yep. Fernando Blanco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but the kid basically says, look, how about we make some sort of pact. We can help you out. You can help us out. There's no reason for this to be something we can't have. And Croc says, "Oh, so I'm supposed to give you a favor?" Well, yeah. As it so happens, I do have something I want you to do. So the ending of this shows that you don't see it, but you just sort of hear the roars. The idea that he's asked Croc to come and kill Poet, so that they're not going to be like held captive by this monster anymore. So once again, it's a famous Gotham villain who's ends up in a bit of an ally.
I kind of love this stuff though. He kind of goes off and he's just like, "Come on, Waylon, what are you playing at?" Like everyone's there, like ready to fight Croc, and it's like big scary Croc. You got to take him away. He's the monster, as they're calling him. He's like, don't worry about it. I got this, guys. Just cool it.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kids, maybe in their late teens, maybe just hitting 20, with sticks, maybe a machete, and they think they're gonna take on Killer Croc on their own.
I love that he yells put her down and then smacks him with the whatever club he has, and he's like, "You want to test me? Like you already hit him. Like he already knows.
You want a taste?
Yeah. So
probably should say that to Croc actually, because he will literally actually taste you.
yeah.
Also, there is acknowledgement. Croc mentions the fake Batman tried to kill you, and so the acknowledgement that wasn't the same Batman he was terrified of, and he knows that.
Right.
Yeah, at some point he found that out over the presumably when the real Batman came back, it was made more clear that there was another one running around.
It's kind of just clear again because continuity these days is wonky as to what did or didn't happen exactly as we always read it, but it's like okay, it's clear the public was by the end of it aware that no, that was kind of that was someone else running around. It wasn't our Batman. Just had a bit of a moment.
I mean, I've been enjoying this kid interacting with the various villains, and that's kind of been there since like the very first story or the first chapter of this. But it's kind of oddly become this nice little trip through Batman history, like the current continuity from a post-crisis Batman onwards, and so now I'm almost like trying to predict what's next. What's the next thing that we're got? The next time period we're going to be in.
I want to see an issue during like 52 where Batman's gone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It could be 52.
Or with,
and then you've got to do one.
Dick was Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to do one while Dick. That's pretty towards the end. While Dick's
yeah.
Batman. Like,
I'm just wondering if there's something before 52 era though, because like that's like 2006, and this is like 99 2000 in terms of like real world publishing time.
Right, but we jumped from.
We jumped from Nightfall to No Man's Land.
That's like 6-7 years, admittedly, yeah. So we could jump that much again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think what are the next big hallmarks.
We've only got 3 left.
You got,
so if you do.
Yeah, that's true. You've only got 3 left, so yeah, probably will jump a big
52
chunk.
where there is essentially no Batman in Gotham.
Right.
Then you do one where he's back. You probably want one where Dick's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You may not get both Dick and 52. I feel like you may get one or the other.
No, you might get one or the other.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer having Dick there because again, it will play into him recognizing the different Robins and kind of playing off of that, and, also having different Batmans. As
and
well.
Damien presumably should be around for one of them.
Yeah,
as the next one.
He's met all the other Robins, so I think he has to. Yeah.
Well, it would be great if
do that with Dick as Batman, right?
You do that as Dick, and then he realizes like this is a different Batman with a different Robin because their attitudes are switched. But he also has to face Batman at some point.
That's the last chapter. Yeah, that's the last chapter.
So I'm wondering, like, and that's more current.
In the one where he sees Dick as Batman, does he recognize that it's the original Robin? In the same way that he recognized that all the Robins were different.
I think the other important part of that, though, as well, I think, is that at that time it was believed that Batman was dead, and I think the idea of him coping or like reacting to the death of Batman is an interesting beat to look at as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely interesting things that could go down. It would surprise me if you get one set during either Court or Was of Death in the Family, something around the New 52 is one of them. I suspect the final chapter though will be not necessarily exactly present day, but it'll be recent Batman. It will be like Rebirth era into Infinite Frontier Batman somewhere. The idea being that we were up to like modern times, and this is where he is now.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. All right, what are we rating, Matt? What are you giving the main story?
I'm gonna give the main story a 7.5.
All right, and backup?
An 8.
All right, Connor, main story?
6.5.
Okay, and the backup?
An 8.5. Really enjoying the backup.
Yeah, I'll agree with Matt on the main story, 7.5, and I'll go with a solid 8 on the backup. So there you go. All right. Batman issue 121. Joshua Williamson writing with Jorge Molina and Mikel Janin on the art. So, this is actually the final chapter of this arc. This wraps up the Abyss storyline.
I don't know if I'd quite go that harsh, Matt, but
I don't.
Yeah, that was a bit harsh. Given that I don't think you were that negative on the last few issues, were you?
I didn't like this. Felt very abrupt, and I didn't like it.
I agree with this issue. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing that this is a little abrupt, but
I've seen this. I'm getting a little bit of flashbacks to some Flash stuff with Williamson. So,
see, but when you say thankfully though, that implies that you've been wanting it to end throughout the course of the arc, and I don't feel like that's been true.
Yeah, this is the opposite. It's not thankfully. It's like, damn it, why is this the last issue already?
Yes.
You want this probably need another 2 or 3 issues. Instead, it's like, oh, we've got a crossover coming. Wrap this shit up.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Abyss thing in this, the more I got to, I was just like, oh man, this is not, I don't like where this is going. And then it moves it on real quick to so maybe thankfully it was the wrong one, but this is definitely the least of the, on the lesser side of Williamson.
Kind of glad Starsky's taken over. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny now is that, because I mean, basically it's right after the crossover, isn't it? Like, he's got a couple months of crossover, and
crossover's 2 months.
Yeah,
I think, which is April. I think he's got June as well. I don't.
I'm hoping
it takes over till July.
So he's got like an epilogue issue or something for his little mini run. Yeah.
I'm hoping Shadow War is more Robin than Deathstroke Inc. And maybe this issue. But I don't know. I think I'm maybe just a little burned out. I do this with Williamson a lot, where I get burned out on certain things, and like here,
I mean, I think it's just
sloppy writing.
It's okay to admit that he's hit and miss, because I think he is hit and miss.
He is, and this right here is definitely more of a miss. As I dropped my phone because I moved my leg too much. But yeah, the Abyss stuff, the League of Batman.
It's a shame. I think most of the arc has been not spectacular by any means, but I think it's been perfectly decent. And actually, then this issue is just like, yeah, we're done now. I'm like,
I think that's it. The arts, despite the fact that the arts, there's been like multiple arts in every book, there's been a lot of art that's definitely elevated significant chunks of it. I will say, on the subject of this wrapping up a bit quick, there's actually the moment in here that I thought should have been the end of an issue. The moment where Batman like just says a phrase, and then all the Batman Inc. stop fighting and go, oh, that's the code word that we stop being undercover now. And
it's like really early in this issue.
Right. I was like, that's the end of an issue. You have that page. Oh, okay, we're not undercover anymore. Now we're with Batman again. Like that you do the end of an issue on that beat.
It's actually funny because that panel where they do the it's like in the kind of almost the triangle on the top half. Whereas this undercover mission's over, and we don't work for you anymore. That image, that lineup is, if you extend that out over full page, that is a final page there. Except instead it's just like, oh, this is half a page and now we have 2 more panels underneath it.
Yeah, because it felt like a big game-changing cliffhanger, and it was a little confusing, and I do think there's a little sloppiness to some of the logistics of like the layers of like double crossing going on here. Now, obviously, what the actual undercover part was, because obviously Batman didn't know about what they were doing with Abyss. Otherwise, a lot of the story up until this point doesn't make any sense. It's more just that they were undercover in the sense that they were looking into Lex, and they were looking into
they were
else.
They acknowledge afterwards though, that it doesn't try and pretend Bruce knew the whole time or anything like that. No. It's more just we were doing this on our own. You kind of abandoned us to just to do our thing, so we were doing our thing.
But in the moment, I was like, wait a minute. Batman didn't know about most of this.
Well,
he couldn't have done.
I think it was more just he had that much faith in them that he can say that, and they'll go, all right, game's up. Let's let's call it.
And the swapping out the body for Abyss, and that whole messiness and
reasons.
It's just it's just like needlessly elaborate for a 4-issue story.
Yeah, and there's other things like Batman just like stealing a bit of tech off Alex's suit, which basically turns his suit into like the same like solution where he can now see his. Yeah,
so I like the reasoning. I don't like the execution.
Yeah,
because the fact that Luthor made Abyss right with his technology, of course Lex would have a key to that to fight it, which is very on brand for Lex. So,
and I'm not against the idea that when Batman Inc. was announced originally, which is what we see at the start of the issue, is that Lex immediately says, "Oh, I need to counter this. Bruce Wayne's going to have Batman Inc. I want a Batman Inc."
That's very Lex.
Yeah.
Why don't I own this?
Yes. So Abyss is kind of a creation. It comes out of that is that he's trying to make his own Batman.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten that before with Lex making his own, like, we're kind of getting that with Bendix and the Rising, right? Over with Taylor and
that's kind of what that is, yeah.
Right, but him creating his own Batman makes a whole lot of sense, just because it would seem easier. Like, he gave this guy nanotech, whoever Abyss is, to control darkness, which he didn't have forethought that this guy could go sideways.
It does say something though, and part of this is because of the arc. I think the back half of the issue when you get to the Molina art, which I've been loving in this arc.
It's as soon as you turn the page onto it, that image of him of Abyss walking through the city with all the neon signs, just like the sides on his back, is just immediately like, oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, and then you get the full white background, and the next page is Batman and Abyss stare off, and it's the idea that Batman's like changed his suit so that it's just bright white now instead of darkness, and you can't see everything else, but you can see Abyss, and that's it.
What matters.
And don't get me wrong, like some of this is very convenient. The way Batman gets his sight back properly is just because Abyss seems to spray him with something for whatever reason. But what I do think is telling though is that when it drops all the Batman Inc. stuff and the convoluted sort of like relationship he has with them and their relationship with Lex, and it just becomes Batman against this pretty neat villain with great art, I was more into that. Like, because it became simple again, and I was just enjoying that because the art was so good. And I could like leave all the stuff from the first half of the issue behind and just enjoy that for what it was, and just art of seeing like kids reunited with their family, and there's a little tease here as well where Batman says, "Oh, Badnesia needs you, Kea, but when you're ready, let me know." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's recruiting."
I do like Batman having this network of people,
This definitely feels like, Batman Inc. has a new member to be, right?
Yeah, I just, knowing that Williamson's not staying in the book, though, I do wonder what the game plan is.
I would say, given the amount of other random books that Williamson writes, especially given his stature in DC now and how he's writes a lot of the big events, this could come up literally anywhere.
I mean, I feel that's why we have Avery over in Justice League Incarnate, right? Just because of what he did with her over in Flash.
I think this one's a lot because Avery, of course, like he was doing a whole Flash run. She was introduced early and was a part of it the entire time. In and out. She wasn't there a lot constantly, but she was in and out constantly. Whereas this, because she's just literally been introduced in this arc, and it's sort of had this seed at the end, it does feel more like specifically designed. Like, I'm going to use her for something important.
It could be a case of more. He's just, hey, I'm not on the Bat book that long, but I want to leave something for people to play with if they want to.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, she could show up during Shadow War too, because he needs to do stuff in Badnesia.
Yeah. I will say, I got a little worried at the end because when Batman calls Oracle and Oracle says, "Oh, the tower, like Arkham Tower, like Batman, where are you?" I was very pleased that, like, because I was worried when she said that, and then I was like, "Oh God, does that mean Bat?" Because not that it would be terrible if Batman showed up at the end of the Arkham Tower arc, but I don't. This is like the Bat family story, and him showing up to save the day at the end would sort of, be a problem.
You might
want
to be prepared to get a little disappointed in a couple of issues' time, Pete.
Shut up. The next page of this issue, though, kind of implies that he doesn't arrive until after it's over, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the kids are going to clean up the mess before Dad gets home.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe I just read this page differently, but it didn't come across that way to me. It's like because it's Oracle going, what the hell was that? Where have you been? That said to me, he did something without getting in contact with them first, but he does come in and do a big thing in the final issue, and then it's like, what the hell are you playing now? We had that sort of thing.
I'm not opposed to seeing him. I don't like the idea that they're going to fail if Batman doesn't show up to like help. I don't know. But it says Gotham City after Arkham Tower, so I was like, oh, I feel relieved at that phrasing.
Yeah, I got the impression from this conversation that this is the first time they're talking after that, because he just shows up and does stuff on the day without contacting them as much as he usually does. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, and then it's got a couple of epilogue things.
Mhm.
Kay is looking into Luther stuff, and Clown Hunter and Ghostmaker being brought in to do things. For the annual.
It's just setting up that annual. Right?
Yeah.
Which, sure, might be fine.
Yeah. And then it teases Deathstroke for the crossover on the last page. So, you know, that's what it is. Like, you know, there's things in here I like. There was things in here it felt rushed. Yeah, so favorite part was absolutely Batman versus Abyss and the art that went along with it. And part of it was because it became this simple encounter between them that was cool and looked nice. The convoluted nature of like the double crosses and all that stuff from the first half. Again, I think it was just kind of rushed. I feel like oh no, he's just ending their undercover nature like with one phrase, and that's just them flipped. That felt like it could have been the end of like this issue and then another issue after.
That's a really good beat to play, I think.
Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, yeah, we're doing that.
It feels rushed here though because it's just like a third into the issue.
It really feels like this arc needed another issue or two, and it was just like, well, crossover's coming, so cut it short. That's the feeling I got from this issue.
Yeah.
I didn't have that up until the first 3 issues of this arc were perfectly fine in terms of pacing.
It's all annoying in the sense that Williamson's writing all the other books in the crossover anyway, and like he
knew they were coming.
Yeah, he planned all of this himself. And don't get me wrong, maybe there was a deadline in the sense that the new writer's taking over Batman starting in July, so it has to be done by then. But
it does feel like he was super excited to set up all this stuff, and then they're like, "Okay, well, you got to wrap this up." And he goes, "Okay," but the fact that he knows he was tying in.
I mean, he's doing the next crisis, so he's happy. I'm sure he's happy. He's delighted.
Yeah.
But there's a very real chance that is part of why he's stepping away from Batman. It's just, he's got a lot of books on. It's like, hey, I can't keep up with all this stuff.
Right, running a crisis is a big job. You gotta be on the ball.
I mean, it kind of got Snyder out of superhero books for the moment.
That's right. Yeah, he did. Death Metal, which is effectively a crisis.
He did 2 of them. Yeah. So he did Metal and Death Metal. And
he was like, that's enough superheroes for now. I think I'll take a break.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting to see a lot of characters like Tynion's doing the exact same thing right now. Where it's like, I'm kind of out of the superhero game for right now.
It's kind of the Rucka Brubaker template, right? They're the first ones I remember doing that, where they're like, I'll come and I'll work on your superhero stuff, but then I need to. I think it's like a director, one for me, one for them.
It's a bit of a
as well. Did a lot.
It's a bit of a shame though that I think Tynion feels like he's doing it much earlier than other writers do it. I feel like Tynion wasn't in the superhero game as long as a lot of the other ones.
You say that he did a decade solid of almost exclusively DC work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't really feel he didn't really come into his own though until Rebirth. But that's when it really started getting good.
It's just, I think what it is he never quite got to the top tier of he's running the events as kind of whereas a lot of these others.
I guess that's what I'm saying. I want though. I wanted Tynion to get to that point and do that sort of stuff.
Having read the first arc of Department of Truth and Nice House, and I'm sure once I get Something's Killing the Children, I do feel he's kind of out on superheroes just because he wants to tell more unconventional, because like Department of Truth gets very superhero-y. Like it's like not in like superpowers, but in concepts.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine that he wants to do unique things and he's got all these creator-owned ideas. It's just, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of a DC fan who has like a writer in the toolbox who's there to like make the books good. It's just a shame that he sort of like went that like I'm going down the indie route separate from this earlier than I would have liked. I would have liked another 4 or 5 years of him on DC books, but
I think it's more he went earlier in terms of where he peaked in his DC career as opposed to the length of time, because like I say, he did do a good solid 10 years of constant work.
Obviously it's his choice, and obviously like if he's writing good books, and that's great. I'm just speaking purely from a selfish DC fan
I hear what
perspective.
you're saying from though, but then you could end up like Johns and Bendis and kind of what all they do is superhero stuff, and then it kind of burns you out on them. Not about Doomsday Clock, but I mean some of the later Green Lantern stuff from Johns got a little bit rough.
Three Jokers wasn't that hot.
Yeah.
You
know, and we
but
all
basically
know
New 52, pretty much onwards, with the exception of Doomsday Clock, a very notable exception of Doomsday Clock. Johns' work was never as good as the stuff pre New 52.
Yeah. It was rarely like terrible or anything like that.
No,
it's just not up at that level where these are guys that run things normally, right? All the big events go through them, and it's almost like they get fatigued. And I get what Pete's saying is that was never really Tynion. Tynion was always off in his own corner, kind of.
Yeah.
I think it's notable that it was when he was put in charge of running the Bat Box that kind of broke him. I say broke him in a bad way because, but more just made him realize that he's had enough, at least for now, in that world.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked another 4 or 5 years of him, like maybe on some other like non-Bat character stuff and doing some other things. But I mean, who knows? Maybe after say 5 years of doing indie books, he'll get the itch, come back for like a run on a character.
I mean, he has said that he doesn't see it in the foreseeable future, but he's not planning like he's gone forever.
Yeah, no, definitely not. There's a lot of love there. Like I feel like I do want a Young Justice or Teen Titans book by Tynion at a certain point.
That would be very good. Yeah. I feel like that for me would hit a lot of the similar sort of vibe and style of the Gillen McKelvey Young Avengers.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a lot of similar crossover and taste for that.
Yeah, by the way, I put the Pig book, the Captain Carter, on my pull list just because. Okay. And I credit it to Gillen just because I'm so used to Gillen McKelvey.
No, he's writing it. Yeah.
Right, but McKelvey's writing it, and the guy that takes care of all that at my shop is like, I think you have that wrong. And I thought about it, I was like, oh no, absolutely right. And he's like, yeah, I would do the same thing though, because usually it's Gillen and McKelvey.
There's been a combo pairing for 15 years or something at this point, right?
Yeah, so apologies to Williamson because talking about his book turned into why we all want Tynion the Fourth to be writing more books, which is a bit insulting in many ways. But
well, no, as someone that I've been writing with Williamson since at least right before Rebirth.
I mean, you can go back to the very first episode of this show, the introduction, with the Rebirth announcement, and you were the only one that you were really excited about Williamson Flash because you stuff.
Right, and I've seen his tendencies over the course of reading his stuff, and when it hits, like Robin, it really hits. But when it misses, Flash year one, like. So, and I hope the Shadow War is more of what I have the feeling it will be, because like again, this felt so abrupt, and can't be worse than Deathstroke Geek has been. That book's been a damn mess. So.
But it did have Deathstroke riding a unicorn, so.
Yeah, like it started off so fun, and then it kind of just.
Very, very quickly dropped off.
Yeah.
Right. All right, that's right, Batman. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this a 7.5.
All right, Connor.
Sorry, I was just so high. It's a 6, and I think at least a point of that is just the art in the back half.
Yeah. Oh, pardon me. What am I going with? I think I will probably go somewhere in between that and say 6.5. I think I like that back half a lot, but it is just a bit abrupt and there's a lot of rushed stuff in it.
I think a lot of the problems aren't necessarily it's this issue is why I'm rating it so low. It's just that this issue is indicative of problems with the arc overall. That well, this is the conclusion because this feels so abrupt. If this issue had, was just spread out a little bit more, it probably would have been fine. But because of what it represents, it's a little bit harsh on it.
Yeah. All right. Dark Knights of Steel issue 5. Tom Taylor writing, Yasmine Putri on the art, and well, I guess we're going to hear Matt like.
Tom Taylor cannot help himself, can he?
Matt,
he does an alternate.
But look, this is a book of two stories, or of two Matts.
There's the Poison Ivy loving Matt, and there's the Superman loving Matt.
Yeah, and Poison Ivy Matt was like, yeah, this is great.
Poison Ivy Matt, I'm sure, is ecstatic. The fact that this romance between her and Harley here is presented the way it is, where Queen Ivy is like out in the forest, and she's protecting the castle and stuff because she cares about Harley. And she wants Harley to come and live with her in the forest. But Harley's like, no, I need to go and protect my world. But I'll visit, and it's all whatever.
I don't want to live outside. That's all I can think with Harley. It's like, there's a room. We could go stay in there.
Yeah. So you got that. But then you have the other side of this. Well, just a side note as well is that, this idea, and I think we speculated about this at one point, that maybe Zala was impersonated when she murdered Jefferson's son. But
right, who else could it be?
But right now, like, she's outright, like, I don't want to say plain dumb, because
she's claiming that she has no recollection of any of this happening.
She has no idea she did this, which
it's possible, or I'd say it's possible she's just bullshitting.
Well, yeah, but I also was like, okay, well, we saw what happened with the Green Man, and maybe magic and mind control, like. I'm thinking like Max Lord stuff.
That's
maybe.
all, right, which is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I don't believe her, because right now I'm inclined to believe Zala and that she's telling Diana the truth.
Yeah, there's also shapeshifters,
I'm not ruling
right?
out the possibility.
There's shapeshifters in DC, so I mean, there's plenty of reasons that could explain it.
But they also seem to have her powers. Although, it could have been Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter.
A word version of that.
Yeah.
We haven't seen this version of Shazam,
Yeah, so worth mentioning that detail. The other part, though, is that Bruce is going to tell Clark about, and it's not even really Clark, you know what I mean? It's just Kal-El here. But he's going to tell him about the kryptonite, and has to reveal that he's also his brother, right? the sheriff father. And he's a bit nervous about it. He sort of hangs his head down, and turns out Kal-El in this universe is a bit of a dick, because he immediately just stabs Bruce with the kryptonite and says, nope, this is our place to rule, there can be no challengers, flies him up into the sky, and then lets him drop to the ground. And
to be found by none other than the Kents.
To be found by the Kents, who are now going to take in a adult Bruce Wayne who has been betrayed by effectively an evil Superman.
So, I trust Taylor a lot. I know he loves Superman. So, and the
he
fact
just loves telling evil Superman stories, doesn't he?
I mean, this was. Do you know what this was for me? This was the same feeling I had an issue or two ago when they introduced. I don't even remember it now. What was it? It was the Joker was also. Was also Lex Luthor, or Alexander Luthor, and was also a Green Lantern, right? That's the same. The feeling I had when I read that page is the same feeling I had when the Kents finding a Bruce Wayne who was stabbed by kryptonite and is now going to be adopted by the Kents as an adult
to overthrow an evil Clark or an evil Kal-El.
Yeah, this is the same. Like, there's this is just every idea just smooshed into a blender, and
I kind of love it though.
And let's just do it. That's what this feels like.
So that's what I was getting at, right? Was like, I trust Tom Taylor. When he stabs Bruce, I was legitimately shocked. Did not see it.
There was a moment where he did it where I was like, "Is this real? Is Bruce having a vision is he terrified? It's going that badly, and
it's like paranoia. Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh no, this is happening. This is what this book's doing now.
And then so to hit with those fantasy tropes, right? It's the tyrant that's hiding in disguise, waiting. Mm-hmm. Chaos is a ladder, and it's seeming like Cal has orchestrated this with someone else.
Which is why then I go back to maybe Zala is in on it. Maybe they are working on this together, right?
Yeah. So I have to go back and read. Did we see her come in, or was it just a vaguely?
We saw her in the sky. I think. I don't think we saw like there wasn't a lot of her speaking or anything like that. I could see the swerve being that Clark is the evil one and Zala is actually completely innocent. Right. Mm-hmm. I could see that being the way this goes. And we see Zala with Wonder Woman in this, and they want to be together and stop their sides from going to war. And maybe like, yeah, if someone is playing this and wants a war to happen, if that is Cal, if it is someone else, then like yeah, all this is going on. But you could, I mean, there's definitely just throwing concepts into a blender.
All
and
this
doing...
is over. We haven't even mentioned the fact that this issue we're introduced to Dick Grayson.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a Batman replacement ready and waiting.
Yeah. I mean,
I kind of love this saying it all like this just sounds like a mess, but when I'm reading it,
it's
works.
executed well.
It feels cohesive.
Well, I mean,
world.
I don't know why they would. Maybe he's got amnesia or something, but for some reason, I can see Taylor being ballsy and having the Kents name him Clark, so that Bruce is actually Clark.
I
think it'll be he needs a new identity, like to go undercover, like less like amnesia in that, but more.
No,
he needs to go by a different name.
Fantasy trope, right? He is a bastard. He has to take on a different name because he's a threat to the kingdom. Yep. So
I'll take your word that that's a trope. I don't know that, but
well, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, that's Prince and the Pauper, right? Like that. That goes back to fantasy type stuff. So, but yeah, no, this is completely wacky in the best way. Because again, I want to hate it, but I trust Taylor. Right?
As much as I'm like, oh no, more evil Superman stories. Yeah. I'm like, that's all right. Sometimes he's done the worst evil Superman story that can be done, and not worse as in quality, but worse as in objectively terrifyingly evil Superman.
Right.
He's already done that, so he can't do any worse.
Right. This seems like the anti-Superman in that for what we've kind of seen is that it seems like Cal is this compassionate person, right? But this is also, he was raised to be a king over people. This is Superman without the Kents.
I'm laughing a little bit because it's dawning on me that this story is that Batman is going to be the true Superman and that he's raised by the Kents and is going to be the hero of the story, and Cal is the evil prick.
Well,
so what we're learning here is Batman is better than Superman.
No,
it's not just that he's better than Superman, he's a better Superman than Superman.
Bruce Wayne's not even the best Batman, number one. All right, so let's chill.
But he might be the best Superman.
Nah. John is still Superman. All right. But no, this is just the tie that Superman is who he is because of his humanity, how he was raised.
It's essentially pointing out that he needs the Kents to be Superman,
right? And that just him being Kryptonian, which is a concept that I love because I feel like in a lot of the Superman pop culture, especially of late, and even Bendis cares much more about Superman as Kryptonian than Superman is actually Clark Kent. And I feel like Taylor is taking the alternative path that, like, yes, he's from Krypton and that's part of his heritage, but he is who he is. He is Superman.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, as much as this is doing the evil Superman trope, I guess at this point, it's in a way that's kind of a love letter to Superman, in a way of like, no, this isn't Superman because he doesn't have the Kents. This is what makes Superman. So it is in a perverted kind of way. No, this is a Superman you've done right, as opposed to evil Superman. It's like that's not really.
It's not even just because he's royalty. It's how they treated them when they got there, right? Like from all we've seen, and it was mainly there's a story from Alfred, was that the elves were like, kindly, and they helped out, right? And they were fair, and so if Clark was raised in this privilege and he never had to feel the consequences for stuff, how would that change him?
Really interesting. Again, it'll be coming down to the Kent's impacts on Superman, or in this case on Batman. But this Batman was kind of a tyrant. He locked a lot of people, locked them all up.
Right, in the name of safety, right?
Right. And I'm assuming this is going to have the Kents teach him better morals, to be a better person, right?
Well, because Alfred already called him out on that, on his paranoia.
Yeah.
So if the Kents are there, and this is his tie more to humanity, then, because he was up in the castle. Despite being the bastard, not realizing it, he was the, what's that called? Like on Game of Thrones when Robert and Stark and Ned went to go live with Jon Arryn.
Fostering hostages.
Is that what it is?
I think fostering is the official term.
Okay, but yeah, they go learn the ways. And that's kind of what Bruce was doing, and it seems like his own paranoia has shaped that because of the lack of his parents and whatever, and thinking he was only merely a human in the presence of these gods, and he had to keep them safe. So I trust it. If this was any other creator, I might have thrown the book across the room, despite the very nice, Harley and Ivy stuff at the beginning.
I love that it was long.
This is one of the books I read in a paper copy. I saved it to read in a paper copy because I went to pick them up today, and I got to that page and I just went, God damn it, and literally flapped the book down. I was like, damn it, Taylor.
I love that the Ivy and Harley stuff was there to lull Matt into a false sense of ecstasy, and then
Tom Taylor is, I like to think, aware of us a little bit, and he did that for me. He didn't want to turn me into the Hulk, so
I best soften him up first.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, super powerful Ivy is always good to see, right? Like her being able to hold Wonder Woman there just with the vegetation. It kind of not that she was talking down to her, but she was talking from a point of superiority, like, all right, calm down, like this, I can go toe to toe with you.
I just can't wait to see how what the Kite Man's like in this. I mean, kites did exist in medieval times, right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay, good.
That puts him, dude. If he could figure out how to fly with a kite, that puts him on the equal level with the elves.
I just want to see him jumping off like the top of a castle.
What's the medieval / fantasy equivalent of the phrase "hell yeah"? Because you wouldn't hear that in that time setting.
It would be something affirmative.
You'd still use hell probably.
But he would say hell yeah.
Yeah.
It would be
Yeah.
I'd have to look up the phrasing.
Thou hell dost. I don't know.
That is the weirdest sentence.
I don't know. I don't know medieval speak.
I'm pretty sure that was like "you hell does," is what you just said.
I just went for some generic medieval sounding things. Okay, all right. That's rate Dark Knights of Steel. Matt, what are you giving it?
What do I give this one? I'll give it 8.5. The art is also fantastic. I don't think we talked about Putri enough, but it's good.
Okay, Connor.
Yeah, I know this is high, but I love this book, and I've been a mark for this book since they bloody announced this. It's not very surprising, but I'm at a 9. It's stupid and wild, and I love it.
Look at Connor using a little bit of wrestling lingo in his sentences.
That's not wrestling.
Saying you're a mark for something? That's a wrestling thing.
Not really. That's been like
someone just
literally hundreds of years.
What was that, Matt? I didn't hear you. Connor was rudely speaking over you, was it?
I said it sounds like Connor just watched Nightmare Alley. And
I've not watched it yet, but also to be a mark, like when you're pulling a scam on someone.
Well, that's where
yeah, I'm familiar with that context.
That's where the term comes from in wrestling.
Yeah, but I associate using, like, saying I'm a mark for something. I've never heard anyone use that for anything outside of wrestling.
Oh, I definitely have. Because I don't watch anything wrestling related. I've heard it.
No, but it does have a common usage. It's just when it comes to wrestling, it's more of a fandom term than, an easy mark.
Yeah. Obviously, yes, in the context of, like, con people, like, having a mark, like, yeah, I've heard it in that context, but that's very different to saying I'm a mark for something because you're a fan of it. Right. Saying I'm a mark for something is a lot like saying I stan someone. And
I hate that. I hate the stan. Those people forgot the point of that song.
I know. I was listening to the wrestling. I won't get to listen to much of a tangent, but I heard someone say MGF is basically the character Stan from the Eminem video to CM Punk. That's his character, and I was like, "That's perfect. That's perfect."
Because that's the right usage of the word stan. Stan is not a positive term.
Well, I think people who started using it know that, and it was kind of an ironic thing. It's just it became such a normal thing to say that now the internet's just kind of bastardized it.
They've taken it just as another word for fan.
They've reclaimed it.
Yes.
Right.
They've reclaimed the slur, essentially.
So I can't find hell yeah in Old English or an old, like, it just wasn't there. It would have been like, you know, like hell, just in a different spelling.
I bet he just yells "jolly good" before he jumps off.
Jolly
with the
good,
kite.
yeah.
Jolly good, and just
jolly good, my good fellows. Jolly well, my good fellows. Off he goes.
My rating is, I mean, I'm not as high because I mean the fantasy stuff doesn't obviously appeal to me as much. I'm liking the mismatch of things. So 7 for me, but I'm glad you two are super into it.
See what you did there.
But I mean, it's given me material to prod Matt with evil Superman jokes and things. So I mean, on that alone, it deserves some credit and merit. So
it's evil,
like Superman. Who is it? All right, Justice League Incarnate. This is Josh Williamson, writing with Dennis Culver as well, actually, and Andrei, Bressan, and Jesus Merino on the art. Final issue.
As someone who's not been reading this, the reactions that I have seen online, and again, I don't know if this is representative or just the ones I've happened to have caught, have not been super hot on this. Even people who were kind of enjoying the book in general.
It's
definitely a prequel to the Next Crisis.
I've heard it's kind of. The consensus seemed to be, well, this was kind of a mess by the end.
It's a bit of a mess, especially when it rushes things like now Orion's the leader of Apocalypse and stuff. Like that stuff just kind of feels really quick and whatever.
There were so many balls in the air that a couple of them got dropped, but the ones that were still juggled are fine.
Like, you know, I really like the 2-page layout early on where Dr. Multiverse and Avery kind of like snap the Justice League Incarnate out of the trance or whatever, right? So, and you get this kind of roll call of all these characters being put back into themselves. And
I like how the Thunderer realizes, you know, being basically the Thor / Superman of this world, that he is still a god at the level of other, and that he can bring the ultimate storm down and save the day.
Yeah, so they basically stop this thing from destroying the universe by blowing up this planet, this Earth on Earth 7. Is it Earth 7?
Yeah, it's Earth 7. Which I also find hilarious, being that this was the Marvel equivalent, right?
They blew up the Marvel universe to save.
Yeah, they were forced to sacrifice it to the darkness.
That's pretty funny. So effectively, two big things happen outside of the opening stuff and like Orion becoming the ruler of Apocalypse. Is that Darkseid follows the Empty Hand into the portal into the Great Darkness, and he's like, "I'm Darkseid. I will never be controlled. I answer to no one." So on. Yeah. And he's in just complete darkness, like it's a completely black page, and there's just this text talking to him, this ominous voice kind of like speaking from the darkness, and it's basically suggesting that the Empty Hand is the right hand of this force in the Great Darkness, but Darkseid, as much as he may or may not know it, is actually the left hand, and
he's the fist.
He's the fist, And Darkseid's like, no, that can't be. I'm Darkseid. I work for no one. And the whole idea is that he's been conditioned in this darkness to sort of like, basically, this is your place. You're part of the body, right? Because the last page is like, you know, remember we talked about Dark Crisis, or maybe it was just like 75, whatever it was. They had the cover and it has all the villains on the one side. We basically see us like a silhouette, a tease of all these villains, including Darkseid in the last page, and saying to be continued in Justice League 75. And it's like, okay, this is setting up the villains, the team that is now part of this body that is the Great Darkness that's coming for the heroes. And Justice League Incarnate, I thought it was a bit weird and made them feel kind of small and weak. That it gets to the end of the story and like, shit, we better go back to Earth Zero and get the Justice League because we can't deal with this shit. We need them.
I mean, just so the fact though that it's been such a mess and they had to retreat into the bleed, and as they can see, the bleed is also being affected by the darkness. You know, it feels like the ultimate Hail Mary is they have to go to the Prime Earth.
Obviously.
I don't mean Earth Prime, but the main crux Earth. Because that's where everything's going to come from.
Earth Zero is the one that we're that's what it's called now. But yeah, the other main thing that happens is that they do try and quickly rescue Barry by what they think they're going into the portal to the Great Darkness as well, but they actually end up in like Earth Flash 1, which is like a created prison to hold Barry Allen. And I did like that the arc was very Silver Age. I thought it was nice to see Barry looking like that. But he's not really thinking like himself. He's sort of like entranced in this world and doesn't like recognize them and or recognizes some of them, but sort of misunderstands who they are. But he's super smiley and happy, like he's been mind controlled or like he's been conditioned or whatever.
It's a prison of his own design, right? Like this is everything that he's wanted. It's this family. It's the Flash family getting together, and even a young Wallace is there. Yeah,
and Pariah shows up, and we know he's somewhat involved in this because that was teased in those big one shots or whatever they were that came out a while ago. So it says that he's working with the Great Darkness, and that's kind of neat. And I like that Dr. Multiverse, like when she looks at Pariah, is like, oh shit, like I'm getting the same feeling from him that I got from the Empty Hand or whatever. Like I'm getting like he's outside the multiverse. He is something else. That he's scary. We have to run. And they do run. So Barry's still trapped in this place, and the others all just retreat to the bleed. And that's the main things you have to take away from this is that they try to save Barry. He's trapped in this kind of like dedicated universe for himself, and Darkseid is kind of like assimilated effectively into the body of the Great Darkness as part of that group. And that's and that part I like the tease of the villains at the end. I liked all the stuff with Darkseid being like kind of spoken to and being broken down until he became part of this body of people. I thought, okay, that's kind of neat. I like this idea of setting up the villains for this big event.
It's almost like Darkseid had come to the anti-life.
Yeah. But yeah, the stuff like with them, like I like some of the art, but some of the stuff with them snapping the others out of it, and the stuff with Orion now becoming the leader of Apocalypse, like a lot of that just felt really shoehorned in and messy at the start. And there's like every issue of this has had lots of like scenes where there's like 8 people having a conversation and saying, what do we do now? And things are hopeless, so we have to all decide what we're doing. And usually it as much as I like the 2-page layout where Dr. Multiverse and Avery do snap out like the Justice League Incarnate who are all possessed and sort of like vibrate them back into the right like multiverse or universe, it still just kind of felt like
very clunky.
It's one of those things where it just pulls out an explanation and says, if Avery, if you run fast enough, I can vibrate them into the right multiverse. Use them, and I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for it. This is just it's the same. It's the same shit.
Sure. What Dr. Multiverse's powers are.
Well, it's the same shit from the back half of his Flash run. It's the same sort of like there's just a lot of like just here's reasons that will explain why
contrivances.
Yeah, like just made up science nonsense out of his ass kind of thing.
And also it's a bit clunky where they're like Dino Cop and they give his real name. You are half man, half dinosaur from Earth, whatever. And it's all very silly. It was very Power Ranger-y.
Yeah, but Dino Cop is like so amazing as an idea that I'm okay. Anytime they can sort of say it like that, I'll take it.
No, I know, but then they do everybody, and it came off very cheesy. But I want to talk about this last page and all of these villains in the darkness. Like this is a heavy hitter, like team.
Yeah, I mean we talked about what the team was back when that cover was revealed, but
maybe I wasn't here for that because this was a surprise to me.
Oh no, we talked about this cover then, and we're all on the cover. So
okay, so I must have missed that episode.
Yeah,
because I don't remember talking about that. But
yeah, we got Eclipso, we got Doomsday, Necron, Upside Down Man.
Who's the one with the mohawk?
Is that
because it looks like an OMAC, but it also could be Despero. But there's not a third eye.
There's no third eye. It's not the Sparrow. I thought that was maybe Ares. No.
Ah, okay.
That was an Ares helmet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the empty hands at the top. That's what that is.
Yeah, and that's like a very big, and then Pariah as well, and seems like these are all the biggest villains for each, of the Justice League. But yeah, I have still no idea what this Dark Crisis is actually going to be. I know that the Justice League is quote unquote dying at their hands. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, I like this last page quite a bit, and it's kind of good it wasn't spoiled by that cover.
I like the tease into Justice League 75. I thought was solid enough, but the issue itself and kind of the arc as a whole is kind of messy. And
no, this and Infinite Frontier kind of have the same problem.
Yeah,
is that they're forcing to set up a lot of stuff without being their own thing.
And they're overstuffed. There's maybe too many characters. I think you know there's this desire in comics to include everyone when it's these big events and have like a big team and all that, but it is a bit too much. And while I enjoyed a couple of the beats with some of the characters, like honestly, like Captain Carrot didn't need to be in this. Like he, he didn't really add it and wasn't or never used as an essential part.
No, he's just there for comic relief.
Half the characters that were possessed could probably be taken out with it. Like the ones you need are Dr. Multiverse, Avery, President Superman,
Dr.
Batman when he was here. You could cut like half the characters and it would probably be better for it. And it's not because I don't like the characters, it's just because it's just overstuffed. It's just the way it is. There's only so much room, but hey. And the art's, fine. Like, I like this, the Silver Age looking pages I kind of liked in the Flash Earth.
It's been consistent across there. Like
it's very house style, right? It's this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like across all the issues, it's not great, it's not bad. It's you're gonna get an issue of Justice League Incarnate from there, but it's never gonna be the art that stands out. So for the Silver Agey Barry stuff, that stood out against the rest of it. But it is curious that Williamson, who spent all that time writing Barry, walls him off in this area. So you would assume that maybe he might be the key in bringing the Justice League back when it's all said and done. Because he's not there in the Justice League right now, right?
No.
I mean, none of us know. We're not reading Justice League, so. But I just feel that's almost a tell that he spent all that time with Barry.
I feel like he probably is still in the Justice League right now, but he probably like all of this arc probably takes place between Justice League 74 and 75.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be my guess, but I mean I could be wrong. So yeah, what are you rating Justice League Incarnate issue 5?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
7. Yeah, probably like a 6, I guess. Bit messy. There's some things I like in it. I'm excited for the event, but yeah. I hope that because the event is the big main event that he's been building to, that it actually doesn't feel as sloppy as some of these lead-ins have been. And I've had a decent time here or there reading them, but if it doesn't like become a bit more focused and a bit more like, oh, this is Williamson really proving himself, he's going to become like a very like B tier event writer to me.
Yeah. I mean, his first one for Rebirth was the Justice League versus Suicide Squad. That was kind of a,
and that was definitely a B tier event.
Yeah. So that's how he started. So I mean. Well, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm crisis fatigued and event fatigued at this point.
I'm a little bit Williamson fatigued as well, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. All right. Batman Killing Time, issue 1. Tom King writing with David Marquez on the art. New Batman mini, the Tom King mini, although notably they promised that this was less of these prestige types books and this was more of a typical classic Batman 6-issue story.
I feel like they're mumbling or they're jumbling that up because I like his prestige stuff, right? Like
I do, but I think his Batman stuff in particular has not been as good for a long time. So
right, and I get that. So for them to come out and say, "Oh no, this is in continuity," I was like, "Well." Most people are probably going to check it out anyways. I mean, if not for King, the Marquez art, like,
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, like, the point I was getting to though is that I actually think it fulfills that. In that, as I was reading this, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't sound like a Tom King Batman story. Like his run doesn't feel like Batman Catwoman. It feels like, yeah, this just was like a random Batman arc that someone could have written at some point.
It definitely, it almost feels like the animated series. And I wonder if that's on purpose.
Yeah, it's set in the early days of Batman. This is, back when Catwoman was more of a villain. The plot is about Catwoman, Riddler, Penguin, and Croc have all teamed up to basically steal an item, because Croc's actually robbing a bank, but the robbing the bank is just a distraction, so Batman's not catching the other stuff. Yeah,
so Riddler has this plan to steal something, and there's multi layers to this bank robbery.
It's jumping around a lot. It starts off with Croc walking into the bank, and it keeps giving you the timestamp in the narration. Yep. And it's like, okay, so they're bribing this guard, and it cuts back to the guard at the Iceberg Lounge the 2 nights before. And then it shows you Selina, who's impersonating like a tennis instructor, and the wife of the bank manager, and then so on and so on. And it kind of bounces around. I had to read it carefully a bunch because it said Selina, is teaching tennis, and to this lady, but the lady she's teaching it to looks like Selina, and Selina has blonde hair. So I was like, did they mess up something? And I was like, oh no, she's running a scam. Yeah, so she's undercover to waiting to strike. So it's actually a very well put together issue where everything does kind of coalesce. Eventually Gordon hears there's a bank robbery. It shows you what time Batman sort of gets informed that and shows up. It was a great full page spread of him jumping in front of the signal.
Yeah, I love the part where Bruce has to fight Croc, right, to save someone in the bank. And he's like, Batman lost 2 teeth in the fight. Croc lost 7. It's such a, like...
I want to say it was more... Was it normal, like 13? I feel like it was in the teens.
Oh, shoot. If you have it, correct me, please. There was a lot done.
I'm going to find it. Hold on. Yeah. The fighting here... It's jumping back to the vault. Oh, here we go. There's the... Oh, no. Yeah. That was a big punch. Where is it? Batman loses 2 teeth in the brawl. Croc loses 13. I knew it was a
13,
teen. And I remember thinking that's a lot of teeth to lose.
Yeah. And I like just the point of, like, it's just a point of fact in the, in the breakdown of what happened.
Yeah, and poor Croc's... So Croc knows that he's just the distraction and he's going to go back to Arkham, but he's agreed to do this for a large sum of money because he wants to pay to get skin grafts so that his ex or his girlfriend who can't kiss him or be with him as a monster that he is now will be with him again. And the money
deserves so much better.
Yeah, and the money gets delivered to her at the end, and it kind of feels like she's probably just going to do a runner with this money and not wait for him.
And with the plan, so Riddler goes to the bank manager to get brought into this vault that he even really can't access, and part of that is part of the pressure on him is Catwoman having his wife hostage.
Yep.
That's who she's teaching tennis to, and there's just layers to this, and that they steal something out of a one of the lock boxes.
Yeah, safety deposit box.
Yeah, safety deposit box, and
ultimately what this becomes at the end is what's in the box. And Batman seems to have an idea because when Gordon's like saying, "Oh, they just took one thing," they didn't even take like bags of money or anything. He says, "Was it vault number 5?" And he's like, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" And then we have like Riddler and Catwoman looking into this box and going, "Oh shit, you got it." So it's like we don't know what it is. The item has been built up now. I'm like genuinely curious what this is that's causing this reaction in all these characters.
And wasn't Riddler getting it for Penguin, and then Catwoman takes off with it?
Maybe
because they go to do an exchange, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah. But I mean, Riddler ends up attacking Penguin. And they see the signal, and that's when they decide to disband because they're having their meeting after they've all done their thing. It kind of sounds like Penguin was the one who arranged the whole thing, but they're double crossing him right here at the end. But I am curious. I'm curious to see what this thing ends up being. I thought they were going to reveal it by the end of the issue because they'd already teased it, enough.
Yeah.
But the end of the issue is Gordon on the rooftop with the bat signal. Batman asks, "Was it vault number 5?" And Gordon's like, "Oh, is this something I should be worrying about?" And he turns around and Batman's just gone, as per usual, and he just goes, "Shit, like, this is something serious. Whatever it is, it's something serious." So, yeah. I mean, I had fun. It was a romp. It was well told. It was a romp. I liked that she's in all these villains. it doesn't feel that Tom King-y, which is weird that they kind of promoted it that way, but it was accurate.
Yeah. Well, it's also just with the characters involved. With you have a Riddler, you have a Penguin, you have a Catwoman. The same week that the Batman comes out, almost feels like a marketing opportunity.
I'm sure that's intentional, but it's it's set in the early days, so we've got these more classic versions of all these characters that are in play. So
that said, I read this before I saw Batman, and I was like, man, if Croc shows up in this movie, I'll be very excited. Oh,
I'd love if Croc showed up in the next one. That would delight me.
So, but it was a nice, fun read, which you can't always say with Tom King because usually his other stuff is so heady. Like I love Human Target, right? But you end up finishing that, and your brain's still going. With this, once it was done, I was like, oh, I wonder what's in the box, and that was just kind of it. So it was nice and light, and a heist, which this is kind of what I wanted more from in his Batman run. So this delighted me.
Yeah, and Connor clearly didn't read it because he's not said a damn thing.
No, he doesn't read Tom King anymore.
Look, this was my only day off this week. I had things to do. I had to read all my books in like an hour before we started because that was when I got home from running my errands.
So,
and I was like,
did you have
really
the intention?
Want to read? I was looking at it. It was a maybe. It was a maybe.
Yeah,
and then I was like, oh my god, it's another Batman book this week. And
who are you, me?
there was a lot of Bat books this week, and then I was like, oh, it's a Tom King Batman book.
Yeah. My comic guy that does my pull list was like, I thought you were done with King Batman. I was like, yeah, this is 6 issues. And he's like, you're the worst. You're the absolute worst.
Oh dear. Yeah, a decent time. Obviously, the art's really nice throughout. Marquez getting to draw all these different things. I mean, Batman looks great, and Batman's not a main character in this. It's definitely. No. It's more of a bouncing around what the villains are up to. It's them performing their little heist. I'll be curious actually if next issue it still bounces around the villains and sort of keeps Batman at arm's length, or if we do switch to like a Batman sort of,
or if it focuses more on like Gordon and Batman and that side.
We shift perspectives a little bit maybe next issue.
Because I feel that's the point of the book is that it's called Killing Time. Is that it's all this almost it's not disjointed in the way, but it's out of order. Because we keep jumping back.
It wouldn't surprise me if this theme of jumping around and time stamping the scenes to build whatever the narrative of each issue is maintains like that's a consistent theme that we play with. I don't know, maybe not, but
not like Rashomon, because Rashomon's all about the different perspectives. But we're getting like what Batman was up to when Selena was at the tennis, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I don't know if we'll get that. I'm just thinking it'll play with the idea that whatever it's focused on in issue 2, it'll do the same sort of mechanic again, where it will jump around the 3 or 4 characters that are doing something at the same time, or within the span of a few hours, and
gotcha.
Yeah,
so well, I'm definitely gonna check out issue 2. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it was a nice, easy read. So, what are you rating the book, man?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
I think that's pretty fair. If I'm going to agree with that, I think I'll go with a nice solid 8 myself as well. Just a good fun time. All right. So that'll take us on to Monkey Prince issue 2. Jean Luen Yang writing with Bernard Chang on the art. And I had 2 Patreon books, so I did opt out. I tapped out on issue 2, but Matt did read this, so Matt's going to give us. So I'm curious the cliffhanger of him getting decapitated. I'm curious how this is going to play out. So
the power that makes him the Monkey Prince is kind of like the Speed Force. You don't really have to explain much. It's just the monkey.
Speed Force, bro. I ain't got to explain shit.
Yeah, and that as long as he's in monkey form, it's not that he's invulnerable or that he can't die or that he's immortal, but it takes a lot. So if he transforms while his head's apart, he's dead. But as long as what's his name, Shifu Pigsy gets his head back onto his shoulders, and that's eventually what happens. But not before Davian takes a lot of joy. And he's like, Batman, look, it's still twitching.
So are we saying this is summed up to just Monkey Prince, bro? I ain't got to explain shit. Is
and
everything for the rest of this book?
Yeah, and that's my main problem is it really like I like that Yang is telling the story of the Monkey King, Monkey Prince, you know, who's like this archetypical superhero from Journey to the West. I just want a little bit more clarity, because at least when it comes to Shazam, who I'm going to compare, because same kind of mystical issue where they change bodies, but the kid inhabits the hero's body. At least we know like the powers here with Shazam run from all the gods and the wizard. And here with everything it really feels like you need a kind of basis in the Monkey King stories, like a familiarity to fully get everything. Because like at a certain point he starts burping the clouds again, and they surround the bully that's responsible for him doing that stuff. And I don't get it. Like there's just a lot left for you to not even interpret, but Yang's really not holding your hand. He's just like, this is Monkey Prince. But Shifu gets them out by transforming his ears into like big, like not wings, but he makes them bigger so he can create these gusts of wind to distract Batman and Robin to hop up on his cloud and get away, which Bruce kind of goes hard on Damian, where he's like, we've never faced these guys. Discovering a new opponent weakness requires intense focus, and kind of blames Robin for them getting away. So just like the voices are off a little bit. Penguin's got a thing going on where he's been possessed by this demon, and he's draining people of their ki. So he's demanding Monkey Prince. What's his name? The kid. Why can't I remember his name? It's not showing up on any pages. But they're demanding his parents bring him more people to drain. And he has this big monstrous form where it's clearly Penguin, but he's like almost dragonized. He has a horn growing out of his head. He's all gold. He's wearing armor. He's still squawking, but he demands more. And Batman and Robin are investigating. They find these, drained out bodies that are left. The kid wants to hope that this is all just a bad dream, because after he gets away from Batman and Robin with Pigsy, he tries to remove like that crown that he wears, and he warns them. Pigsy's like, you can't just get rid of the power like that. It shows you. So as he's taking a shower, it forms back instead of around his head on his chest. So he's got to go find Pigsy at the school. But he runs into his crush. Oh, his name's Marcus. That's right. And they found it. But he runs into his crush and Damien, who claims to be a reporter for the school paper, who just starts grilling the new kid because he weirdly jumped into a pool fully clothed. And then the Monkey Prince came out of the same pool, but he kind of disappeared. He just claims, Marcus claims it was a dare by the bully, and that he does this type of stuff all the time. It's how he decompresses. But his crush invites him to come to how to deal with stress class or club at the school that she's a part of, because she's telling, she can feel that he's all worked up about stuff. But yeah, it's as he starts panicking about this, those burp clouds come up and they start to go around the bully. Like I said earlier, he finds Pigsy, and this is where he tells him, you can't just get rid of it. It'll keep coming back, but this ringlet, wherever you want it to appear on your body, you just have to think about it, but you can't just get rid of it. And he gives him his magic word, which is the Chinese word for transform, which, if I butcher this, I apologize, but it looks like it's beyond. So again, a lot of parallels with Shazam. He's got a magic word, he has this power that he doesn't quite understand. And that's where it leaves, that he's going to become the Monkey Prince. And then there's almost a post-credit with this Penguin, who these demons come over from. They claim to be servants of the great ruler of Flame Planet, and this guy shows up wearing a dark hood. His speech bubbles are all red and look like flames, and says that he hungers all the key because he's been infested by a demon, and that their path to immortal powers, they must consume a saint or a hero. It says in our current times, the 8 immortal powers have been dispersed amongst the heroes of the realm. Consume enough of them and we'll be unstoppable. So now Penguin wants to go consume Batman, and that's where the issue leaves. And I'm going to give this one more issue. I know it's a limited series, but it just seems very much in its own realm. And like the voices for Batman and Damian are kind of off. Like this almost feels like it should have been Black Label. Does that make sense? Like just kind of let it exist in its own form instead of trying to tie it into other DC stuff, because it just, but it's a fun read. Like if you don't have anything else going on, you're not going to waste any time. But it's very weird. And you know me, I like to be able to look up stuff and get an understanding. And there's not a lot. Like you have to get really into the Monkey King mythology. And I don't have that kind of time on a Wednesday with 8 other books. So, but the art's pretty good. The inks seem a little bit different. They seem a lot heavier, so it gives the art as not a cleanly look, but it's still, fairly decent. But I'll give it a 7.5.
Okay. All right. So that will take us on to Arkham City, The Order of the World, issue 6, Dan Waters and Dani. So final issue. So much like Justice League Incarnate, so that's, there's a couple of things ending this week, making room for new stuff starting next month, presumably. It jumps ahead a little bit. We find out it's been like a week and a half since the end of the last issue, which was the group going to Professor Pig's lair.
Mm-hmm.
His factory, his workshop, whatever you want to call it. Slaughterhouse, there you go. And Dr. Joy has been kind of doing her job there. It's kind of like questioned later on. Someone points out that this is actually Pig giving her treatment by letting her feel like she's doing something useful, because this is what she does.
Yeah. Pig's running an asylum, essentially.
Yes.
Here.
Pig's running his version of an asylum where he wants people to be free, so they're all just sauntering around. One of the big things that this issue revolves around is that she's going around to all the patients and saying, hey, are you really okay with what Pig's about to do? He's going to let someone out, right? And we don't really know who they're talking about for a while. But obviously you cross as she's talking to more and more people, you're crossing names off. You're like, okay, well, it's not them because they're already up and about. It's not him because he's already walking around. It's not Dr. Phosphorus, it's not Vampire Lady, so on and so on. And she tries to talk Pig out of doing it. It's like, no, we're different from Arkham. We don't have cages. We have whatever. And then it turns out that she's talking about Azrael. That's who it builds up to. Azrael is in this like really medieval cage thing.
He's like bound, like in the cage.
Looks uncomfortable.
I want to know what this device is actually for. What's it based
it's a
on?
slaughterhouse, so
yeah, it's probably.
I don't think it takes that much imagination, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably just a holding.
Yeah, okay. It's probably for putting like a cow in or something. Yeah, okay. But I mean, it's a pretty. The point I'm making though is it's a pretty unique structure, and she's begging everyone not to let him out, because she knows that Azrael is not like the rest of them. As soon as he's let out, he's going to start fighting the rest of them, and that's just going to be chaos. And Pig's like, no, he's had enough time to understand what we do here. He's going to be like everyone else. He's one of us. He's one of the crazies, so he's going to get the same treatment. And would you believe it? When they let him out, he just, his sword flames up.
Out the fiery sword.
Yeah, and just starts like causing chaos and hacking and all the rest of it.
It's not been a good week or two for Azrael. Throwing kids off of bridges, going after these reformed Arkhamites. Because it does seem like Pig has changed the way they treat them, right?
It's working, right? It's unorthodox treatment, but like 10-eyed man.
It's giving them
in his room.
Yeah, it's giving them all the stuff that they need to do, right? So like Ratcatcher's running through a maze because that's what he needs to do with his mania.
Yeah, well, it's explained at the start that Pig has kind of evolved a little bit, and that he's not just trying to perfect the face anymore; he's trying to perfect the mind. So that's why he's kind of obsessed with fixing them all.
Which I love that because the Pig that we saw early on seemed very sinister and just like a monster.
Well, I think
it's.
I mean, it still is a little bit because it's not like because we say fix, we would mean cure and rehabilitate and be a normal member of society. Whereas he's quite happy to turn them into like the perfect version of who they are, which is like so Ratcatcher running in a maze, like that's not really curing them, but
no,
and it keeps him safe and stops him.
Yeah,
it's more humane, arguably, right?
But in that. That's also Pig knowing there's a twist to it, right? Because like when he makes the Dollatrons, he knows he's removing people's faces and putting porcelain ones on there, and turning them into something that he wants them to be. And like so, him and No Face are insistent on them releasing Azrael, right? Like they won't listen to Dr. Joy, which also goes in with Pig, and almost that chaos, right? Where it's still just a bit off.
Yeah. So when all this is going on, or predicting it's about to go on, Dr. Joy does, call the police, and Stone, who's been our main cop, whose kid was threatened last issue, is like leading a charge, and is going to shoot the 10-eyed man, but Dr. Joy intervenes and jumps in and gets shot instead. And then 10-eyed man bashes the head of Stone against the wall, presumably killing him, and the end of the issue is that Terry Man goes out into the city and is like basking in the moonlight, practically dancing. And
there's that panel where he's bending over backwards, like the pose, like very much dancing.
Yeah, and Dr. Joy's narration is just kind of like as she is dying, like she's made him feel free. She's helped at least one patient technically, and maybe that's enough. So it's a pretty sinister ending where she's basically just been consumed by the city and by the madness. Yeah, the madness. Yeah. So
it's very Lovecraftian in that way, right? Like it's all about the madness, and she eventually got pulled too close and it ended her demise. But I like what 10-eyed man tells her was like it's one of those things of, I told you I'd be safe as long as I do my rituals, and 10-eyed man did the rituals, and her taking the bullet for him kept him safe.
Yeah, so in his mind it worked.
Right.
And who's to say it didn't?
Right. And it's one of those, type things. So, but yeah, no, I was not expecting this ending like this. Like it to be so, what's the word?
Bleak.
Like, what's that, Connor?
It's bleak mostly, even though there's like a bittersweet tinge to it because the 10-eyed man has his moment of
freedom,
being free and presumably not going to hurt anyone immediately. It doesn't feel like he's off.
No, but he has to replace those eyes.
Yeah, I felt like Bleak was the only way this was going. I was not expecting any remotely happy ending.
I was expecting Bleak.
Well, not a happy ending, but just I expected her to almost be like, get pulled in almost that she gets driven insane as well. Not that, this was actually going to be her death.
I mean, she does get drawn in and potentially goes insane first. So
she has one moment of clarity to call the police, but otherwise, you could argue that she is just off the deep end, and maybe has been this entire time.
Right.
Whether that was A-Day that did that to her, whether it was just working with all these types of patient for years, but the madness got to her. I do love the page where you see like all of the various villains chained up from Azrael when the police are arriving. It just has a very kind of Hellraiser look to it, which I kind of dig. So that was nice. But yeah, it's a decent ending to this story. I don't know if the story of the whole arc overall is exactly what I thought it was going to be after that first issue, because I still think the first issue is my favorite issue of the whole thing.
Yeah,
but I certainly did enjoy a lot of the twists and turns though.
It's probably not what I expected it to be, but I enjoyed every moment of it. So I'm not mad about that.
No, I mean I think it was the right length. I don't think this is something that should have been like 12 issues around like that. I think 6 was the right amount, and so it's done. It'll be a trade now. It'll sell a little bit copies.
It'll probably sell a reasonable amount just based off of the Arkham name. Tends to have enough pull with casual audiences that people might pick it up and check it out because of that alone.
I think fans of of either the artist or the writer will check it out and it'll do well for that reason.
I think fans of either of those definitely should check it out if they haven't already for whatever reason. But because I think it definitely it delivers on what you expect from both of them.
Because I think it appeals probably more to people who are fans of either the creative team or both than it maybe does. Like I think some people will buy it because it's called Arkham City, but I think a lot of people who buy it because it's called that might not necessarily get what they're expecting or be happy with what they get, because
that's
probably
true.
Because it's a weirder take on things. But that's not to say that I'm saying that that's a bad thing, because I think it's great that it's unique and different and it's its own thing.
As someone who likes Waters and really likes Dani's work, and came into that first issue excited because of them, and had, even though it didn't go where I expected from that first issue tonally, I think it delivered on the feeling, the atmosphere throughout based off of that first issue.
Yeah.
And I think in that way it's definitely a success.
Yeah. All right, ready then? We're writing the final issue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this an 8.
Okay.
Go with an 8.5.
All right, 8 and 8.5. I think I'll stick with the Fly 8 as well, like Matt. But there you go. So that's cool. All right. The Nice House on the Lake, issue 7, James Tynion the Fourth with Alvaro Martinez. Obviously, had been loving. While. Yeah, obviously we'd been loving this book, and it went on the break after issue 6. And I will say I was very confused for a good bit of this issue because
that wasn't just me.
Well, because there was like a moment like where I'm like, they kept Walter kept interacting with him like he was just one of the group, and I'm like, I'm sure Walter was the name of the one who did this to them. What's going on? And I got really confused. And then obviously as it went on, and it kind of made it very clear, I was like, oh, okay, I get it, because it's reset things, and now he's like, now they think he's been there with them. This is like phase 2 or attempt number 2 of the whole thing.
Well, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Yeah,
right.
It may be way further down than 2, but you know what I mean. It's like a new version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if this is like a science experiment, right, and that Walter was supposed to just let it do what it needs to do and collect the info, this is him getting directly involved to get the endpoint that he's looking for.
Yeah, because that's the thing now. Because he's there, one of the characters, is it Nora? I think, who was there originally in the first 6 issues, is now the one who's like trapped separately and being kept in the dark. And every so often we cut to her, and she's, talking about being trapped there.
Yeah, and
those pages are phenomenal.
Because
the art is fantastic throughout.
Right.
But those pages are just the blackness and just the figure, and it gets a little bit closer on the figure each time we cut to that page.
Yeah, it brightens up because it starts with just darkness, and then the next time it gets to it, you see their outline a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then eventually in the
And it's interesting because she talks about, because this is the trans character, and talks about how Walter had a crush on her, before she transitioned, right? So back when what was her name before she Norm, there you go. And kind of talks about how Walter's this controlling guy and has always been this controlling guy who's trying, even before he had the alien experiment or whatever it is, he always tried to intervene and try and make sure couples would or wouldn't break up and so on and so on. There's a lot of talk about that in this issue, but this idea that this was part of this character that Walter didn't see coming and didn't know how to process, and sort of Nora at least thinks that Walter kind of resents her a little bit for this, because it was like a swerve to him that he couldn't kind of foresee and didn't understand it, and maybe it's kind of hurt that he had a crush on the person she was before, and never has really understood that that's not really who Nora was, and so there's some interesting things being explored there as we go through those pages. And then the rest of the issue focuses mainly on Molly. The redhead, who talks about how she used to work a lot with Walter, keeping the other couple together, and how he kind of became attracted to her, which was weird because she thought he was gay, but then it turned out he goes both ways, and that was kind of this awkward thing. But it's kind of seeding their relationship and how they're still kind of close in the house now that he's there and now that he's part of the group. Yeah,
it was a friendship that was based off of, she calls it in her narration like a diplomacy back channel, to where when Norm was dating, was it not Reg? It's Reg, right? No, Ronnie was dating Ronnie. They would fight and then break up. Or not break up. They would fight and then go complain to one another. So then they would talk about the stuff, which then Walter and Molly would bring up to them from a different viewpoint, and then they would make up. And they almost bonded over the fact that when they were making up, they didn't like to be around all that because you could hear everything. And, so it became this actual friendship. And from what I got from the storytelling is like, Walter legitimately cares about Molly, like in a different way, like what we saw with Nora, right? From that is that he actually cares about these people. So it makes me wonder what exactly is still going on.
Yeah,
he definitely seems to, at least, because I mean, there's a reason he picked these people in the first place, right? Is because he cares about.
But it's also each of them represents a different thing, right? And like.
But it's
for a while,
and it's all this. It's also this controlling thing, though, where he does kind of see himself as knowing what's best for them and not letting them also choose that for themselves. So that's a source of conflict that is constantly coming up in this. Even if he does genuinely care about all of them and has all these feelings, like ultimately what he's doing is still wrong. I mean, that's obvious, but like it is something that comes up. But yeah, so we sort of see him though, obviously mainly interact with Molly and go for a walk with her, but he does kind of go around others and even kind of joins in because they've got like whiteboards up and they're trying to figure out what the situation they're in and mapping the surrounding area and figuring out what the rules are, and they start talking about asking for buildings.
We request a new building?
Yeah. And because they even joke, maybe after a couple of buildings we'll get like a theme park. Like let's get a theme park.
Yeah, we could build one. Yeah, the comedian guy says that. And
they're also like, let's request like an antenna. We'll get better signal. And they're like, that probably won't work anyway. And they're like, yeah, but if it does and we try in 6 months, we'll be really annoyed we didn't try it earlier.
Yeah. Well,
like,
just the fact
harm
that
in trying, right?
He's almost like manipulating them here now too, because of how, without his presence, how it went off the walls and how they figured everything out on their own.
It completely changes the control group, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so now he can kind of get them to make the decisions he needs them to. So he suggests, maybe we should try another building. Yeah, and if someone else would suggest the antenna.
Leading them in direction. Yeah. Like, hey, maybe try this, maybe try that.
And that no one, because of this, no one has found the other house like they have before. And that the reason that he suggests the second house to build like basically the conspiracy room, which after reading this, after finishing the first Department of Truth, is quite hilarious.
Tynion definitely has a certain handful of ideas that he is processing in like 3 or 4 different books at the same time in different angles.
And so it's so Nora can see all of their friends,
with like the 2-way mirrors and stuff like that.
Right, without having to interact with them.
I think also part of this idea of like the work-life balance of like the work being the try to figure out the situation they're in, the problem solving, is like by separating that and making the house more residential, he is almost driving them to like focus it, like, because even if they think we won't focus any less on it, we'll just keep it separate so we can have this place be a home and not covered in all this stuff, it will inherently kind of maybe make some of them just get more relaxed and maybe stop trying to figure things out.
The exact thing he says, I think he says he doesn't want to trivialize I don't want to trivialize or avoid what's happening here, and it's like that's exactly what you want. It's like not in such a maybe sinister way. I mean, it could be, but more like it's just okay. It's separate. We got work-life balance.
That said, though, it does kind of sound like he wants them to figure something out, because when he talks to Nora at the end, he says that his goal is like, no, you need to figure this out, and then once you do, I need your help. So it's not just that there's an experiment here, it's that he's going to use them for something.
But he needs them to figure out in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Right? In a way that doesn't just make them go off the rails.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it felt like Nora was that powder cake character, because just the way she is with the, she is a rebel.
So maybe why she was the one that was removed.
Yeah.
Right. And versus Reg, who has seemed to, now there's 2 artists in the house too, which I'm wondering if that's part of the different dynamic.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder if this is, maybe it's just the second try. If it's more than the second try, then has every single try been with someone different removed to see?
That's what I was thinking, because he says he decided to play it a little differently this time. Which doesn't mean that this is the second time, but it means, obviously we know it's at least that, but it could be a lot more, and maybe he has tried it with other people.
Well, and there's that moment with Reggie where, I think it's Reggie anyway, who asks a question because he's starting to basically question things in a way where he's questioning Walter.
And just forget you asked that.
Yeah, and he just he deforms in the way that Walter does first, because he's like, oh no, I don't like this question. And then he does his voodoo magic or whatever, and makes him forget.
Some great, again, the lettering touch. Obviously he's completely deformed, but when he's doing this hypnotic command, I suppose is what it kind of is, that the lettering completely changes, and it's got that kind of floaty, warped look to it, which is really effective.
I mean, obviously this would have worked without a break, but I think this new version of or this new attempt at the experiment, starting off with this issue, actually really fits well with the break.
It feels like there was a natural point in the narrative to have the break, as opposed to just we needed it somewhere. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure they did need it somewhere, because it's grueling for any artist to do it all.
It might have always been planned, and they just didn't announce that there was going to be a break until they did. It might have been from day one they knew there was going to be a break in the middle, and they just never told us until issue 4 came out.
It totally works as like a season break almost.
Yeah.
Because when you would come in and now everything's changed.
What's still exciting to me about this is it's easy to overlook that, yes, this is a 12-issue mini, but Tynion explicitly sworn that this is kind of like book 1 of this saga. That yes, it will function completely standalone, but there is more to be told after.
Which I'm not surprised, because now that we're in the back half, effectively, of this, I'm starting to get the feeling like there's more to this overall idea that this book's not going to be done with by the end of issue 12.
Once we finish issue 12, I feel like there's going to be a bigger door open. And there's going to be something else we didn't even consider.
It wouldn't surprise me if maybe they figure things out, and to some extent in issue 12, and then maybe we'll hear what he wants help with, and that'll set up book 2, or something like that.
It's really interesting. We're using that term book 1 and 2, and I think Tynion is as well, because he uses those phrases on a lot of his work, where he talked about the first 15 issues of Something That's Killing the Children are the first Erica Slaughter novel, and then there's a 5-issue arc, which is a break, and then the new issue that's just coming out, or just come out at 21.
Or maybe a word that we're starting to use more with comics as seasons, so maybe
the reason I'm going to say book specifically for Tynion is interesting, because one of his Substack ones, the horror one that just came out recently, is 3 parts, but it's shorter, and he describes it as a horror novella. So again, he's very much using those.
Sure, I just mean in terms of marketing the second run. I think season 2 is easier to it's easier to understand, I think, if you just say that. Whereas if you say book 2, it's kind of confusing, because it's it's comic book issue 1 of season 2 or book 2 or whatever.
It's still an interesting choice between using literary terms versus TV terms.
It's easier when it's collected. When you've got big hardcovers, which is just book 1 and book 2, that's really easy. But it's a bit different when you're releasing the single issues, I think.
So when you said that with the Something on the Children, Connor, what's that Sideways book that's off of it?
So that's a spin-off based off of one of the other characters. Which you've not started reading that book yet, have you?
No, not yet.
So, so there's I don't think it's too spoilery. There's an organization. Called the House of Slaughter, which is what the other book is called.
That's right.
And so it follows. The first arc follows one character from that. I think the second arc of that's going to follow someone else from that house.
Gotcha. So it's not part of the overall, as you said, Erica Slaughter novel.
No, so Erica Slaughter is obviously a character that's part of that organization.
Right.
Hence the name. And the main book will be following her story. plus some extra little bits because I had like a 5-issue arc that wasn't part of the main novels, as he's calling them.
Okay.
But
to get back onto this issue here, I just want to clarify that the final lines, because we keep saying they need to figure something out, and I think that's still partially true, but the exact phrase he uses is, I want to convince you that what I'm doing is right, and then I want your help. So part of this, which is interesting because they don't know that they're in this experiment by him right now. So I think it's interesting that part of this is that like they need to all accept and understand that this needs to happen. At least from his perspective. Maybe they'll never agree to that, and that's why we end up in this apocalyptic looking future eventually.
Right.
But or maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe that like they need to go through that to eventually get to the answer. That's part of the process.
Right.
But either way, you know, we're still building to that in some fashion. So
yeah, pretty good. Also, I love that they added a character key to the back of the book. At least the physical did.
Yeah, I didn't get that in the digital one.
Yeah, it's not in the digital one.
Oh man, that sucks. Yeah, there's a character. I don't have my physical.
I think that's probably the one that variant cover was that time.
But it's got all the characters listed, and it was very helpful going back and learning like Molly is the mathematician one with the.
I think it's really interesting. I noticed again. We've probably spoken about this before, but it's been a while, so I kind of forgotten a lot of these little details.
Yeah.
All their symbols on the front cover. There's only 10, even though obviously it's been going through one each issue, but there's 12 issues, and there's only 10 symbols on the front. So what are they going to do with those last 2?
It makes sense. They might be more of an ensemble, or one's going to be Walter, and that's why it's not one of these symbols.
Could be, yeah.
There's lots of options.
Yeah.
But really great stuff. Obviously, the art by Martinez is great. It's the same moody, slightly dark and alien as that it felt before, but notably very good with expressions, very good with the conversations and the I think it's really noticeable those because it's that effect with Walter where the glasses like are just completely flat and hide his eyes, and it would stick out anyway, I think, regardless. But I think it's how good the expressions are with the eyes in every other character that it really sticks out that he doesn't have that. So it does make him feel distinctly alien compared to the rest of them.
Yeah. So also, Belair's colors, I think, they're always great, obviously. But in this issue in particular, what stood out to me was the flashback at the start of Molly and Walter. The vibrancy of those colors, like they feel so so much brighter and more vibrant than anything else. And it's not that the rest of the book feels dull, because it doesn't. It's just everything's a little bit duller in comparison to that sequence.
I think the idea with that is that this is genuinely a happy memory for Walter.
Yep.
This is a happy time.
It could be that. Yeah. It could be more just that was that's reality. Reality is okay. No, it's brand. This here, it's this artificial construct of where they're living.
But I'm also more keen with Pete because this is so far this book. A lot of the stuff that's like that has been kind of dipped in tragedy. And here, this memory where they're recounting the relation, or Walter's at least remembering the relationship, it does come off positive. There's very little tragedy there. Like even just Molly as a character, I don't remember her through the first part of it, but here she seems like she has it more together than almost anyone else. You know, and I wonder if that's from the relationship with Walter, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, no, super intriguing though. Good character work, good art, intriguing mystery. Every issue this has been a treat, so I mean there's really nothing to complain about. Matt, what are you giving Nice House in the Lake issue 7? I'm
giving this one an 8.5.
Connor?
Seems like I'm consistently skewing a bit above Matt this week, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Yeah, I'm also going to give this a 9. Excellent issue. Return to form. Happy to have it. And you know, it was kind of a week where I had a lot of 7s and stuff this week, so it's kind of nice to have one that I was really passionate about. It's always nice to have at least one of those. So there you go. That's all the new books. Now I do have a couple of Patreon books every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can go over there, and if one of the higher tiers, you can make myself or Connor read a book. These are both my February books. Very busy the last few weeks on the show between news and solicits and things like that. So I'm catching up now. So we'll kick it off with American Vampire issue 23. So this is the 50s stuff. This is Travis, the greaser, fast car racer character who hunts vampires, and as expected, the car he's racing with that's got the kind of girlfriend, the one who is like luring guys' boyfriends back home for the vampires to kill, but he knew it was going to be vampires and he killed them. That was the last issue. And we ended the last issue with her being in the trunk of the car that he's racing with, and it's Skinner driving the car. The last page of this issue actually finally has him say, like, this asshole's Skinner sweet, right? But it teases it throughout. It's kind of obvious it's him. He even says at one point he needs gold, not wood, to fight this vampire. So that's all good and well. But we get some backstory where he's very badly kind of mistreated as a kid. He's this like, because of whatever happens to his parents, he's basically at a sanitarium. There's a nun, there's a scientist, a doctor who's convinced that he needs like severe treatment. He ends up getting like I don't know if he gets shock therapy exactly, but they're considering doing like a lobotomy, but like through the eye, because they've got a new technique where they put like a needle through your eye, and it sounded like grotesque. But a lot of this issue is the car chase. It's all the speed lines. It's the cars scraping against each other. Travis is talking about how he doesn't really care that the girl he was with is in the boot of the car. He's like, that's not going to stop me. If he thinks it's going to stop me, he's got another thing coming. And it shows you actually him running into her at the motel the day before, because he's left. He moved on from the town where she lived, and she's kind of followed him, and she wants to go with him, and she's worried that vampires are hunting her, and he's always paranoid that vampires are, and she says that to him, like, they're running scared, like the vampires that were forcing me to work for them, like, they didn't really know you by name, but they spoke about you, like, you have a reputation, like your story's getting around that you're killing vampires. But the big action comes to a big sort of crescendo when he starts throwing Molotov cocktails at the other car, as you do. And the car is basically on fire, and this girl is like in the back of the car trying to reach out, and he does actually get up in the hood of the car, and he's reaching out his hand, and he's trying to like save her, and the car in front is just completely on fire, and she's like trying to rummage through his bag to get his like special gun that's got gold bullets for Skinner. So yeah, Skinner's like jumping from this flaming car onto his car, and it ends with a full page of him like on the front of the car, and the main character, Travis, says his name's Skinner Sweet. So, not super surprising by any means. It's exactly what you sort of think it's going to be. But I mean, the art's really good. Like, this is the thing. Like, I think this issue and the last issue were super quick reads, and I think it is because so much of it is this car chase, which isn't a complaint, because it is really. It's got a lot of adrenaline. It's done a really good job of giving you this sense of who this character is and his attitude, and he thinks he's this bad boy. He thinks he's he doesn't have a heart. He doesn't care about people. But I think over the course of this, like, even though he keeps turning this girl down, saying, no, you can't come with me, what we had wasn't real, it does kind of feel like him warming up to her is going to be part of this arc and part of like his like becoming more human. Because what he doesn't realize right now is that his vampire hunting badassery has kind of made him not that much of a human himself. So in a more spiritual sense, he has to kind of find his humanity and realize that he isn't just some creature of the night like the vampires are. And I'm being distracted because every so often the sound of Matt's fan is I'm
gonna mute my mic.
Just racketing into the soundscape. So yeah, it's a good time, and the hints to his like sort of dark backstory where they were going to give him a lobotomy, which is, they don't like sort of finish that. I'm assuming we're going to get more of that in the next issue. Gives you a little bit more of a scope. But we know vampires killed his parents, right? That's kind of his motivation. He's like greaser vampire hunter Batman, effectively. So that's what we'll go with. But art's really good. He's a sort of a breath of fresh air compared to like some of the because we'd be kind of bouncing around a lot of the same characters from the last few arcs. We had Pearl, we had Book, we had Cash, and we were bouncing around those characters. So it was kind of nice to get this fresh character here who's younger, and so far it's kind of really playing with the idea of this new generation of like young character, because there's even like some of the narration early on is talking about how there was a scientist on TV talked about how teenagers' brains are different, they want things fast and now, and they don't think about the big picture, the long game. And he's sort of talking about that in relation to like him hunting this vampire, and like no, he is thinking the long game, he is thinking ahead. But I think kind of the irony there, the dramatic irony, is that that's not really that true, because he is just so focused on hunting vampires that he's not thinking about the long term of anything else. So, yeah, solid issue though. Solid 8 out of 10, I would say. That's American Vampire issue 23. So, very good. And then the other book I've got to do for Patreon is Animal Man issue 17, and this is, the last issue was the one in, I think it was Paris, which with the clock based villain and all the wacky shenanigans that came from that. This issue actually has a sequence set in Glasgow of all places, because we're dealing with Mirror Master, and there's another hitman who comes to tell him that the job's been taken from him and given to this new guy, and he wants like the plans for Animal Man's house. And the guy, obviously, Mirror Master's like, sod this, and starts messing around with them using mirror tricks. They have an argument. It kind of cuts back and forth to this a few times. There's a great moment where the other hitman tries to shoot him, and then when he tries to shoot him, this entire like world just cracks and smashes like a mirror, and like Mirror Master's transition to him being inside a mirror world. It's a really neat transition. It's a really fun little moment. And what's interesting here is obviously we'll get a Scottish character being written by a Scottish writer, so there's actually a lot of little Scottish bits of slang here or there mixed in, which is both authentic but also kind of weird. Like I'm not a big fan of slang being written into dialogue in comics, even when it's my own local slang. It's just kind of weird having characters say things like that. What's an example here? Like, how's it gone? Like, for example, being written in here from Mirror Master. It just feels weird.
On TikTok, I see a lot of people writing in Scottish, and it's like Dani, Donnae.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I get why Pete gets annoyed now.
Every so often, like, Scottish Twitter will like, for some reason, there'll be something that means it gets onto my feed, and they'll just be like 10 tweets that are all like, okay, I have to actually decipher these. Give me a second.
Yeah, Connor thinks he's had a stroke for a half second because it's close enough to English, but it's not.
Well, I even have to decipher them because, it's slang. It's not supposed to be written down. That's the part. That's the weird part of it, is that reading it's actually difficult, even for me.
Let's say if you just say it, I understand everything it's saying. It's not understanding the comprehension. It's what are these words, because my brain doesn't see them written down often enough. So I have to go, what is this actually saying? Because
there are Scottish people like that I have encountered on Facebook or social media who insist in typing in like slang, and it is just annoying, especially when it's mixed with like text speak, because they still just put you for you and things like that, and it's like, this is just absolute trash. I'm not reading this.
It's like that sometimes you'll get retweets with like headers of like brand new sentence because you can't make out what they're actually trying to say because it's all slag and, as you said, text speak.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm pretty sure that sentence has never been said before.
And don't get me wrong, like there are exceptions to me not using or liking this, like just before everyone calls me hypocritical, because I do like typing the phrase "moan then," which means "come on then," like to fight. Moan then, like. I do think that one's pretty funny. I don't know why I think that one's funny, and I hate every other one, but that one's funny to me. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's the meme of the squirrel holding out its arms with the moan then above it. Just made me love it. I think that's all it is. So if I have a complaint about this issue, is that I don't know if the previous issues kind of set up the Animal Man's doing, like, because obviously he's vegetarian now, He's doing a lot of stuff like protecting animals and environmental stuff. But he's kind of with a group this issue who sneak into like a lab who's doing animal testing, and they rescue the monkeys that have all had their eyelids like sewn shut because they're doing like eyesight deprivation studies or something. Some bullshit. But they're basically like eco-terrorist kind of things where they set fire to the place afterwards. And one of the big parts of this issue is that later on he finds out that one of the firefighters who just went there to fight the fire got like burns over most of his body and he's in hospital. And it's like, this is like something he was involved in. Now, he's not the one who actually threw the Molotov. He even tries to like say, no, you shouldn't do that, but it happens anyway. So he has to sort of deal with the guilt of that, and he's going to like he's going to quit the jail. I think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to give his last paycheck to the firefighter to try and help with his recovery. And he's like done being a superhero. He feels conflicted about all this, and and Ellen gives him a little bit for it. His manager Roger gets really upset at him for like being involved with this. I don't know if the previous issue set me up that he was like doing things like this where he's putting on a ski mask and breaking into places with a group of people like this. That felt like a little bit out of nowhere to me. Because this felt shady just from the get-go. But other than that, I like the guilt he has over everything and like him struggling with that. There's also teases for other stuff. The end of the issue is this character, James Highwater, who we see early on in a car and his hands like go invisible for like a minute. And he's freaking out, but he needs to get to the animal man. And he mentions, I know why, I know now what the Psycho Pirate knows. And this is only a few years after Crisis this came out. So some Psycho Pirate stuff around this time frame is kind of interesting. And there's a nice scene where he gives, he catches Cliff eating a burger. And he sort of gives him some shit for it, and Cliff's like, "What? No one else is a vegetarian at school. Why am I being so weird? Even the cat's eating meat. Why don't I get to do it?" And he kind of says, "Look, I'm not going to make you never eat any meat, right? That's kind of your choice." But he tries to explain to him. It's a little bit lectury, it's a little bit like every time you eat a burger, you're contributing to climate change for this, and this. And he's right. This is the thing. He is right.
He is. But burgers are tasty.
So I want you to be aware of all that, so you can make your own choice. And so on. And it is interesting though, him giving his son this lecture when he finds out a few pages later that he, something he did led to an innocent person being injured. A firefighter being injured because of something he did. Because it's not like a lab technician who was doing bad stuff to animals came back and got injured. It was
someone trying to help.
Yeah, it was someone who was just there trying to do their job. And relatively speaking, we kind of look at firefighting as a fairly noble profession. That's just something we need in society. Heroic, one might say. So it is kind of like, okay, he feels quite bad about it. And he's going to a talk show. He's booked into a talk show where he's going to debate kind of what he's doing, like dealing with animal cruelty and things like that. And this like just shithead who's like debating with them, he's like, what about free will? Should you really stop someone who's hunting a fox when they see that as acceptable? And Buddy goes straight to the Nazi comparison. Well, should we not have stopped Hitler from doing what he was doing because he saw that as acceptable? And it's just like, all right. And Joe, I liked about this though, is actually quite smart in the writing, is that when he went straight to that, it felt like, I don't know, like he's got a point in what he's saying, right? It does work for the point he's making.
He reached for it a bit early.
But he's reaching for it a bit early, and it kind of feels like he's struggling, and he's jumping to this extreme comparison because he's maybe losing the fight a little bit because he's not like thinking with a level head. And sure enough, he immediately gets bodied because the guy says, "Oh, you're comparing what happened to Jewish people to animals." Then that's what you're saying. He's like, "No, you're twisting my words," because he is like he's being like this spin doctor, and Buddy's like, "Look, I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I can't always be right about everything." And he's obviously feeling bad about the firefighter as he's saying this. And then the other guy's like, well, that says everything then. He just admitted he can be wrong about things. And so he sort of loses this debate. And it's a really frustrating thing because, anyone who has any sort of critical thinking can sort of see that he's just being flustered and he's still ultimately saying the right things. What he's saying is making a lot of sense, but the other guy's making him look bad. It's a sort of crap you just get frustrated at when there's any sort of political debate happening. But But sure enough, Buddy tries to tell like the guy from this group that he's not going to do this like stuff with them anymore, and he's quitting the superhero business, and he flies off. But the cliffhanger at the end of the issue is that this guy who was like his hands were turning invisible. At the end of the issue, his legs are turning invisible. In fact, I should probably be more accurate here. It's less that they're turning invisible, and it's more like the comic art is regressing, and it's only the line work that's left of his body parts. Is maybe a more accurate way of saying it.
See, now I know which part of the run you're at.
There you go. Well, it looks kind of invisible because it looks like the sort of effect you might do to show that they're going invisible. But it's really more like the basic pencil sketches of his legs that are here at the end.
It is more meta than just invisible, yeah.
Yeah. But he's basically saying, "Help me, Animal Man, help me." So we're getting to I presume the more meta stuff in the book. Obviously, we've teased stuff
the
like
more
this
Grant
before.
Morrison stuff, you might say.
But we're getting into some weird territory here. But yeah, it's basically setting up that there's still a hitman who wants to come after the Baker family, and we also have this new character who is being undrawn, whose coloring and ink work is disappearing at random. So everything is setting up is super interesting, and Buddy dealing with his guilt over what happened is really cool. I did just feel like it kind of like came out of nowhere that he's doing this kind of thing with this group. Like I felt like I should have seen him do something like this with them before. That was maybe didn't have the dark ending, but he's doing stuff like this with them before. And maybe if it happened and I've forgotten about it, then it's my bad. But I don't think I'm forgetting.
I don't remember you mentioning it.
Yeah, so I don't
not like listen entirely, but
obviously he's been doing things. He went to like help with the dolphin thing and that, but that wasn't breaking in with ski masks and like doing like vandalism and theft and stuff. This is a bit more. This is basically the characters at the start of 28 Days Later who, unbeknownst to them, unleashed the rage zombie virus into the world. That's more like what it's like. So yeah, good issue though. Like I say, obviously you get the unique part of the art, which is that this guy is like regressing into like being undrawn, but the other stuff is by and large it's just the regular artist that's been on the run. It's very consistent. I think the chimps or the monkeys at the start who have their eyelids like stapled shut is a pretty grim visual, and it's on the cover as well. The cover's just Buddy holding one of them with
I don't like that.
Yeah, it just looks super cruel, and that's kind of the point, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, solid issue. This one was less fun, of course. This was not like a fun hijinks issue like the last one was. But that's okay. I would probably give this. I'll probably go with the 8. I was tempted to go 7.5 because of like how out of left field one of the elements were early on, but ultimately everything it's teasing for where it's going and everything it does with Buddy's character I really like, so I'll still go with the 8, I think. But there you go. That's Animal Man issue 17. So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favourites of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite artist, and top 5 books. So we'll start off with Matt and his panel / moment of the week.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the Matt thing here, but it's not gonna be Ivy. I know that's what everybody was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gonna be the final page of Justice League Incarnate, because I didn't see that coming, because I managed to say it's unspoiled. And I just liked seeing like putting together. This was the people that are responsible for the death of the Justice League, and they're all very heavy hitters. So yeah, like these are all crisis level villains on their own, but now they're teaming up. So
there should be a funny one. I'm a little disappointed it's not these heavy hitters and then like Crazy Quill.
Cold Snap.
Or Cold Snap, there you go. Cold Snap's just like there as well.
That should have been. That really should have been.
All right, Connor, what's your panel / moment?
Despite everything in that book, I'm going to go with the panel from Batman. Just after we switch to the Molina art of Abyss, just in the streets with the neon signs. I think that's just a gorgeous panel.
Yeah, some good stuff towards the end in the art of Batman for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I have like I'm tempted to say Cal stabbing Bruce with the kryptonite just to upset
That was
Matt.
almost my choice, just out of the sheer not out of enjoyment, but just the shock of like, oh, that's what we're doing. Like it was such a big moment.
Yeah, Yeah, there's temptation. Not gonna lie, there's a bit of temptation. But I think I'm probably going to go with Nice House on the Lake, and maybe even the final moment. Like it's something about, and then I want your help. But something about that line is just really catching. It's like, oh, that just completely shook up like where we're going with this.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, bit of intrigue, I guess. All right, cover of the week. I'll dive in here first. I will say, the variant for Arkham City with Professor Pig is monstrous, and
it's very reminiscent of McKean stuff as well.
Yeah,
which obviously for Arkham Asylum.
So dig that quite a bit. Not quite winning for me, and because I'm not always into the Middleton covers, but I will say the Middleton cover for Dark Knights of Steel, does look gorgeous. This particular issue. But the pick I'm going to have to go with is the Matina cover for Batman.
Really?
It's just my pick this week. Yeah.
That's not interesting. That one's not doing that much for me.
It's just simple. Obviously, there's a couple of Batman movie variants for some of these as well.
Yeah, I really like the Behemoth one on Batman.
Yeah, it's a nice cover, but I like the Matina one a bit more. So that's what I'm going with. Matt, what's your cover of the week?
So my cover of the week is going to be from Dark Knights of Steel, because I can't help myself. That's where it's going to go. But I want to give shouts to the Fornes Detective variant.
Actually,
because it's...
which cover though, Matt, from Dark Knights of Steel?
I'm sorry, the main Dark Knights of Steel.
The main one, okay.
Yeah. But the Fornes Detective has the what looks like the Black Hand. I think that was the organization. The Black Glove. I can't remember. And the Batman is R on there, and it's very technicolor-y, and it's very nicely designed.
It's unrelated to anything in the book, but I like it anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Connor?
Yeah, I was really tempted to go with that Arkham City variant. It's just very striking. I'm actually going to go with the Nice House on the Lake variant, the Ferrerum. It's just the statues, the monoliths that are scattered around. It's just a page of those, and it's a striking image.
Yeah, cool. All right. So art of the week, Connor, you can start us off in that one.
Oh, it's probably Nice House on the Lake, but Arkham City is a very close second.
Yeah. Matt.
Dark Knights of Steel.
That's very fair. If all of Batman was the Molina stuff,
that would have been in contention, but it's not, right?
I would have picked. I almost want to give it to Marquez because I think his art was fantastic and
that'd be acceptable.
But I'm going to go with Nice House on the Lake. But it's close. It's close. It's not.
Do you know what? It says a lot about a week where one of the weakest probably the weakest section of art in all of my books, or one of two of those was Janin's half of Batman.
And Janin's great. So
yeah,
good week for art, I guess. In that sense. Okay. About top 5? I think everyone's done their best art.
Yeah, we're on top 5.
All right, top 5 then. Matt, take us away.
Number 1, Dark Knights of Steel. Number 2, Nice House on the Lake. Number 3, Batman Killing Time. Number 4, Arkham City. Number 5, Batman Detective Comics.
Okay, Connor.
It's a toss-up between Dark Knights of Steel and Nice House on the Lake for number 1. I think I'll edge it to Dark Knights of Steel just for the shock value as well. 2 for Nice House on the Lake. And then Arkham City. Then Tech. That backup helps. And then Batman.
Okay. Well, as tempted as it is to go with the issue that proves that Batman's a better Superman than Superman, my number 1 is Nice House on the Lake. Number 2 is Batman Killing Time. Number 3 is Arkham City. Number 4 is Detective Comics, and then number 5 is Dark Knights of Steel. So there you go. That's the books. And I will tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So let's have a look. We have Detective Comics 1056. We have The Joker 13. We have Superman Son of Kal-El issue 9. Second part of the Nightwing crossover, so that'll be interesting. We got Batman Urban Legends issue 13. Batgirls issue 4. I Am Batman issue 7. Future State Gotham issue 11. Trial of the Amazons issue 1, which I think we'll probably be giving a good proper try to. Partly because we should try it, and partly because next week's quite light on books we actually read.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna try it anyways.
Yeah.
I've been reading Wonder Woman the whole time. So.
But like it is a light week for what we read. So there's also Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes issue 2. Matt's definitely checking that out.
It's his favorite book, I hear.
Yeah, Nubia and the Amazons issue 6. Superman versus Lobo issue 3. The Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 12, and Naomi season 2 issue 1.
So we're gonna do Trial of the Amazons, and you like it, you're gonna want to do Nubia and the Amazons 6, because
that's part 2. Oh, yep. Good point. Yeah, okay. Well,
no.
Well,
that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Isn't Nubia? Is that not a miniseries as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the final issue. That book is.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought at least that. Because I saw the Trial of the Amazons tag on the cover, and I assumed that was like a prelude. Like that was the final part. No. Issue 6 of your 6-issue mini is part 2 of an event.
Well, we'll read Trial of the Amazons, and obviously, if people like it enough, read that as well. But we'll see. We'll see how we felt.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, later week next week, which means I might even get ahead on my Patreon books by doing one next week, just to make use of the light week, because it is a light week. Because I only have 1, 2, 3, including Trial of the Amazons. I have 4 books. Oh no,
if you
5.
Like that, you've
Naomi.
got 5.
Yeah, well, I got 5 including Naomi. Actually, I forgot Naomi was at the bottom.
Right. And if you like Trial of the Amazons, then you got 6.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at too.
Yeah, so it's a lighter week, so that's okay. Yes, and obviously Matt's going to be talking about Legion versus Justice League. So
I am not.
Oh, well into existence. So yeah, that's what's coming out next week. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Bordenau, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman, and Alison M. Fordyce. They are Patreon producers. Of course, you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. At the $5 tier in particular, you get early access to the show by a day. Whenever it's ready on the Saturday, you'll get it immediately. Versus everyone else on the Sunday. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in doing that. You can also support us for free by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications. You can rate us 5 stars and give us a review on iTunes or whatever podcast app or site you use. And of course, you can also share us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast on the Twitters. By all means, use that. Let us know what you think of the books on there as well. I always like to hear. So yeah, that is all that. Is there anything else I usually promote? I don't think so. Yeah, I do plan on doing some sort of review of the Batman movie, a bit more in depth, probably early to mid week. So look out for that on the Mailed Fuzz Movies YouTube channel.
They'll put up the bat signal.
Will you be sticking on the audio feed like usual?
I don't know, because it's just me on this one. I usually do that when there's a discussion between like 2 of us.
Who wants to just listen to Pete?
It's a good question.
I mean, that's a point.
You should do a review all in Scottish slang.
Hey, part of the movie was filmed in Glasgow, actually. So is
that where I did not know where they filmed, because it didn't look like any other. Gotham.
I think the city skyline was not like that was.
No,
or whatever, but
parts of the city looked like places that
I will say
I hadn't seen Batman filmed.
So the cemetery, and when they're riding around in bikes sort of from or to the cemetery, that's all Glasgow. I recognise kind of that more or less. And then there's maybe a couple of little bits, but I think a lot of it was shot in like either Chicago or something. Like it's not but like there was some parts shot in Scotland.
Gotcha.
But welcome to the Batman review, where I can't even do slang. What am I going to say?
I don't know. I'm just trying to will into existence. To borrow a phrase.
This Riddler Daftie's a bit of an idiot. So Batman whack some man across the face. I don't know.
Spoilers.
I mean, I was just making that up. I mean,
also, Batman punching Riddler wouldn't really be that much of a spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Anyway, it's actually really hard trying to like on the spot say everything in slang. Like I'm like, oh wait, I need a slang phrase for everything now. Because I don't naturally do it. I don't use slang by and large. Like I'm sure a little bit slip in now and then, but I'm not someone who uses a lot of slang.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So there we go. That has been episode 295. We're getting dangerously close to episode 300. I don't know what we're going to do to make that special, but I guess now's the time to suggest things on Twitter if you like.
See how many books we got that week first.
That's true. It could be a very busy week, which means it may be a short celebration on that episode.
We will celebrate by reading all the DC books.
Hey, that's dangerous depending on the week.
Yeah.
It's like, yes,
I didn't say that.
On week 300, we will read every single DC book, no matter what week it is, no matter what we've been reading before that point.
Just cut that bit out, Pete.
Yeah, we're not going to do that because I don't want to do that. That'll be the week. That'll be the week that somehow ends up being Justice League versus Legion. We all have
and
to
like
read.
Harley Quinn will be out as well. Or something.
It'll be like issue 3 of Justice League versus Legion. We'll have to read and like, what's going on? I don't know, but we all read it.
Yeah.
What's happening? So that's a terrible idea. Connor just brings up stupid ideas.
It was a terrible idea. I'm willing to admit that one.
Yes. So, episode 300. Everyone, like, we'll all write a poem about each other and recite it.
Poem
during the show.
You ready for slam poetry? Because that's all I can do.
Connor is a ginger. He's also a big fat whinger. Yeah.
You done?
All right, let's wrap this up.
Is whinge a word in the US, or is that a slang word? Or is that
that's slang for you guys.
Yeah. So to whinge is to complain and cry. That's whinging.
That's like whine.
Yeah.
That's close.
So I couldn't think of anything else that rhymed with ginger.
Yeah. The first time I ever heard whinging was on Game of Thrones. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whinging.
And Gar does whinge, to be fair. It's not. That's not a ridiculous statement.
I whinge appropriately though.
Go back and remember the cross in the church with
completely justified.
That was definitely whinging. That was
whinging.
that was like that was a class A whinge, is what that was. Yes.
Justified.
But here we are. That's been episode 295. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, keep reading DC Comics and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Long live the Legion.